Invocation or moment of silence, Scott Ryder.
I have a factual treat for our students, and our staff will be excited as well. I wanted to wish us all luck, because after tomorrow we only have 10 more Fridays left in this current school year, which means that we'll be celebrating a new batch of seniors graduating 12 weeks from tomorrow. And I'm very excited about that. So I'm just looking for all of your support and help to help these seniors, as well as our pre-K students, and even younger than that, enjoy the balance of the 2022-2023 school year. And I wish them all the best, and I hope the same from all of you. Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God bless America. God help Enfield.
Fire evacuation announcements. Double doors behind you, out the double doors to the parking lot. Double doors to my left, your right, down the stairs, and out to the parking lot. Roll call, please.
Mr. Ryder?
Here.
Mr. Umpire?
Here.
Mrs. Capri?
Here.
Dr. Kalman? Mrs. Cushman?
Here.
Mr. Hamry?
Here.
Mr. LeBlanc?
Here.
Mrs. Pickett?
Here.
Madam Chair?
Here. Okay, item 6, board guests. Mr. Drezek.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have a very special guest this evening. At this time, I'd like to call our Enfield High School PE teacher and our Director of Unified Sports, Coach Armando Ramos, to come up. And he's brought some very special guests with him tonight to give us an update on something that the board had mentioned during some of your comments about a recent trip he and some students had taken. And we appreciate the change of postponement from the snow day and altering your calendars to get here. So I will shut up and turn it over to Mr. Ramos and his variants. He's not the special guest.
All right, just want to introduce, we have Shaylin O'Farrell over here and Lily Bellucci. All right, so we were asked to represent Connecticut at Capitol Hill Day on February 14th through the 16th. And it's a celebration and really a chance for Special Olympic athletes and partners to advocate for Special Olympics, and we're a division of Special Olympics through the Unified program. So they wanted to hear about Special Olympics Unified programs and championship banner schools. So we went down that Monday, and I'm going to let Lily and Shaylin kind of speak a little bit about those experiences that they had. Go ahead, Shaylin.
I think Capitol Hill Day was an amazing experience. I was so excited when Mr. Ramos shared the news with me at school. I am very thankful that he chose me for this great honor. 2 highlights from the trip are: I was delighted to make many new friends who were also Special Olympics Unified Sports athletes and partners. They were from lots of different states across the country, from North Carolina to Louisiana, and as far as Hawaii and Alaska. I even set up plans to become a pen pal with one of my new friends, Rodolpha, from Georgia. Everyone I met was nice, happy, and friendly. I also really enjoyed going to see all the congressional and Senate representatives' offices and speaking with their staff. I got to read my speech to all of them, and I did really well. I also was able to give them a special commemorative coin with the event logo on it. This logo was designed by a Special Olympics Unified Sports athlete. I got to eat in the Capitol cafeteria, go on the Capitol building subway, and walk through all the underground tunnel. To close out the trip, we went to see the Lincoln Memorial and the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. They were huge and interesting. This trip was awesome.
As Shaylin was saying, it was an amazing experience to meet different people and hear other people's stories. So our first day we got there and we had like a big group meeting with everybody and we got to know each other a little bit, and I got to hear some different stories, and it was really amazing to hear what some of these people are going through, and they're still able to just do so good and just doing great. Our second day, we went to 5 buildings. We got to meet with the aides, and that was very exciting because I've never spoke to anybody that wow before, so that was interesting. And I really hope that we get what we asked for, because I really do think that Unified Sports and Special Olympics deserves it, especially how compassionate all of these kids are to be a part of it and how much they really love it. So yeah.
And I just wanted to close out that these are 2 of Enfield's finest, and they did a great job, and we were very, very proud to have them represent not just Special Olympics for Enfield, and they were just amazing, and the way they conducted themselves, I was just in awe. So I just want to thank them again. They did such a great job.
Thank you so much. Some of my board members might have some comments or questions. Is there anyone? Ms. Pickett?
Sorry, Scott. Thank you so much. I love DC, so I loved hearing about the visits that you made. I also love both of those monuments. I think those are my favorites. I'm wondering if you could share with me, what did you advocate for? So what were you hoping that they do to help out? And I'll let you answer that one first.
So the ask was, it was 65 in total. 65 million in total. And it was 20 for the health program, and then 45 for the the Connecticut Champion Schools for Unified.
Yeah, Unified Champion Schools.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yep.
And if you could follow up with ways that we can support that, because I'd be happy to reach out to those legislators and support that ask as well. I think that's awesome that you're advocating, and I would love to help you do that. I'd also love to ask, and maybe you don't need to answer this question right now, but something to think about is, how can we be helpful in supporting the efforts that you're doing here in Enfield, and what could we do to make it easier, better, and more inclusive? So thank you for all you do. You can think on that one and get back to us, all right?
Absolutely.
Ms. Pickett always asks a lot of questions in a row. So she broke for you, so you could answer some. Mr. Ryder?
No, actually, I was going to follow up to what I was going to say what your follow-up question was, and just let us know what we can do to help you. I think this was a fantastic trip, it sounds like. What did you guys have for lunch in the Capitol cafeteria?
Go ahead, Jayton.
I had a buffalo chicken salad.
Oh, all right. Yeah, so please keep us in the loop and let all of us know what we can do to help you.
Mr. Hamry?
So I want to thank you all for being here tonight. This is it's very, very surprisingly moving. I wasn't expecting that, and I appreciate that, and thank you very much for it. But to bring it back to a sports thing, because this is a sports thing, was there a particular sport that you were involved in?
I was involved in what?
Every sport.
Every sport. Nice. And again, as Scott and Amanda had mentioned, that DC's got a lot of things to do in a short time to do it. So even if you're there for a week, a month, a year, you'd have a hard time taking it all in. Can I ask, what was your impressions of a little more detail on the meetings that you had, the people you talked to? Was it intimidating, or were you comfortable?
I was kind of nervous, kind of
All right.
comfortable.
Good. That's what you should be. You should be comfortable there. You should be comfortable here, and I hope that you are. Again, thank you very much. I appreciate this. This has been amazing.
Yeah.
Ms. Acree?
I just want to congratulate Mr. Ramos for taking the children. I can imagine how it was bringing and being responsible for the children in Washington, D.C. And congratulations to Shaylin. Is it Shaylin
Yeah.
and Lily? Thank you for representing Enfield and doing an amazing job. Thank you very much. You guys were very well spoken to tonight. Very good.
Mr. LeBlanc?
So if I remember correctly, this is affiliated also with the basketball game that would go on at Enfield High, correct?
So there will be, I mean, I'll let Mr. Ramos speak. There are different unified events throughout the year, so to jump in on some of the previous questions, it's not on the calendar yet, but I asked Mr. Ramos to let me know when he has the next event, and Kathy will put it on all of your calendars, and that's one of the best ways to support our unified program. You won't regret it. It really is the best of what we do. And now no pressure to find that date for us, Armando.
Yeah, we have events all through the school year. We compete. We've already had, like, for example, we do flag football. We did a big cornhole tournament with lots of schools. We did basketball. We just finished basketball. Right now we're in the middle of planning for April for volleyball and cornhole. And then we always finish in June with a track and field night. And the track and field night is kind of our like flagship event. We have the Enfield Allied Stars. They come. We also have the JFK unified team. And sometimes if we're lucky, we can work it out. We also have East Hartford. So it's a big event, and it's all age groups, anywhere. I think it's like 12 to 62. So it's a big, it involves everyone, and it's a lot of fun. And we have a big party afterwards with ice cream and medals, and it's a great event. So I'll make sure that everybody gets notified of that, because that is really our best event, in my opinion.
Great, because I was gonna ask what's next on the agenda. I'm sure there was upcoming events, so I'm sure on 8 of us, and including Jerry, 9. Would love to.
Yeah,
be
we'll definitely
supportive
keep
of
you
that.
tuned. Like I said, we're planning some volleyball and some cornhole for April in May, and then in June we'll do the track. So when I get all those dates finalized, we will definitely let you guys know. Awesome.
Oh, Mr. Ryder?
I just wanted to ask, did you have more fun in the cafeteria at the Capitol or when we used to hang out at JFK?
When we hanged out at JFK.
That's all I wanted to know.
I actually known him from JFK.
Used to hang out at lunchtime.
And I used to scarf my food down like a chipmunk in 10 seconds.
Not much has changed.
That's actually true.
I'll have to come visit you and have lunch at the high school. So.
I just want to thank you all. Mr. Ramos, you've come before the board several times with your advocacy for unified sports, and being able to take this opportunity to go to Capitol Hill with Lily and Shaylin is amazing to us. We're very proud to have you represent Enfield Public Schools. When people talk about teachers, their jobs aren't just from 7 to 3:30. Mr. Ramos puts a lot of extra time into this because he enjoys what he does. So we appreciate that. We appreciate there's a lot of teachers that do that, and they're very selfless in their jobs and take on a lot of extra work because it means a lot to them. And I'm sure Lily and I see a lot in the Capitol at that time. So I'm a little, yeah, I did not know that. And they actually made us throw out our water bottles at that, so we were kind of upset about that. But going to Washington, I'm sure it was amazing. The first time I went, I think I was 45, 43, and I was in awe. I had never been before, but seeing the Washington Monument and such is an amazing visit. So I thank you again. Please keep us informed as far as unified. When you have your tournaments, like when you do, you're playing against other schools.
Yes, correct.
Oh, okay. Because if you needed people to play, I'm pretty good at cornhole. Like I think maybe a Board of Ed unified thing might be a fun little event we could do. If
I went.
ever...
You're not as good as them.
No.
Was the cornhole champion.
But keep us in
Lily
mind.
was our champion at the last tournament. So.
All right. That's good.
She
to know.
informed me she hates cornhole, so I don't know.
I just walked right up to that hole and popped it in.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's an even better way to do it.
again, I appreciate it, and keep us in mind, and let Ms. Zalek know, and she'll put it all on our calendars. So thank you again.
We appreciate you having us and inviting us here. Thank
Of
you
course,
very much.
thank you. Okay, item B.
Thanks. And I know they're leaving, but one thing I left out, and they're already gone, so they'll see it on TV. I also have to thank the families of our students, especially with trips like this. But when you really see a unified event, you see the family connections that are behind all this and the support we get from the community and the families as a whole. So I didn't get an opportunity to thank their parents, but hopefully they'll watch this later. And our last guest for the evening is, you guys all know John Daig, is our Director of Strategic Development and Partnerships. A lot of people want to know what that meant. You'll probably figure it out when he's done in the next 20 minutes to a half hour or so. But what I asked Mr. Daig to come tonight is, during the budget presentation, I did a very, I'm going to say, generic version of kind of the situation that we're having when it comes to what are some of the challenges we have in our facilities right now. And since over the last 6 months, we've had this ongoing dialogue about different topics, which ultimately led to the budget presentation. I knew that I can do it in the best way I could, which was basically like a scrap of paper that I put on the screen during the budget presentation with one particular building, because I knew we had John Daig, who can do a heck of a better job than me to explain what that all meant. So tonight we asked John to be our guest to sort of take us through some of the challenges that we've had, some of the things that are coming down the road with regards to facilities, also a little bit more history on, we talked a lot about the needs of our kids. John can really articulate that very well, and I won't give anything else away. So now we often refer to John as the smartest guy I've ever met, although Dr. Wiley may have given you a run for your money for their last presentation. So I turn it over to John Daig.
Thank you. For tonight, there is quite a bit of information on the schools, and I didn't want to bring it all and present it all tonight, so that I'm assuming that everyone has somewhere else they would like to be after. So to kind of shorten it up, I put it on their school website. So if you go to enfieldschools.org, on the community section, there says PK5 school modernization, and there's also a QR code. I'll show this at the end again, so if anyone at home wants to get more information on it, they can use the code to find out a little bit more. So I just wanted to start by kind of showing what's possible. I know that the board has all seen JFK and how beautifully it's been renovated, and experience how different the building feels after that renovation, if you remember before to now. So walking in the halls, I mean, you could be in a community college, right? Not just a middle school. So I just want to show some people at home some of the pictures of how much the building has improved, and say that we, and I'm sure the students, appreciate the town's investment in transforming the school and enhancing the educational opportunities for our students. So when you start looking at JFK, you're going to get some questions. When you can see how a 60s era school like that can be transformed, how that changes our curriculum, how that changes programming opportunities, how the educational environment itself changes, we kind of began to ask some questions about our pre-K-5 schools. Do our existing conditions and structure meet the educational needs of students PK-5? Does our existing structure meet the community and family needs? And are there any barriers to access in any of our pre-K through 5 buildings? So, just pictures you see. If you JFK up on the top right, you can see how they've recentered the school with STEAM in the center. And then this is one of my favorite things. And if you go down the center hub, you'll see that they have writing on the windows. What that is they're flow charting out a program for microbit that they're programming in one of our classes. So a little bit of history for people at home. Our pre-K-5 schools were kind of built in 2 waves. One wave of school construction was in the early 50s when we had Enfield Street and Hazardville Memorial. The town was growing, and Hazardville Memorial needed an addition 2 years later, 1956. And then in the mid-60s, we had Henry Barnard, Parkman, Crandall, Stowe, Enfield, Whitney, and an addition to Enfield Street School. So the town worked to continue to upgrade, modernize the buildings. They did things like roof replacements, asbestos removal, windows and doors in some of the buildings. But the last time we've taken a really comprehensive look at how the buildings are structured was in about 2001, and the last plan was finalized in 2002. And that's when we added the libraries, gyms, computer rooms and the kindergarten classroom extensions at each of those kind of neighborhood schools. Now, in 2011, the schools were restructured, right? And we went from a neighborhood school model, it was grades 1 through 5 or 6, depending upon the period in time, to a K2 and 3-5 model with sister schools. Then in 2013, we moved to full-day kindergarten. Prior to that, we had AM and PM kindergarten, so that kind of changed how we're using the rooms a little bit again. 2015, we opened the Stowe Early Learning Center, brought over integrated PK the next year, and then in 2019, we consolidated Head Start over at Stowe. So just a little history. Now, the 2011 restructuring, 2 schools were closed, Stowe and Alcorn. Stowe reopened just a few years later, as I showed before, but we moved to that sister school model. We have Barnard and Crandall up in the north part, Memorial and Whitney kind of in the central part of town, and then Enfield Street and Parkman on the southern part, and Hale closed in 2017. So that kind of restructuring of the schools has a couple impacts. First, when we restructured to that model, it increased transitions and transitions between schools. So adding in the pre-K program, a student could have to transition from pre-K to K, and then they're transitioning from 2 to 3, and then they're transitioning again at the middle school. But if a student is receiving services, if a student is special ed, if they're receiving EL services, occupational therapy or physical therapy, speech and language, or others, they're going to be transitioning service providers as well. It's one thing to have an ESOL teacher that knows you, or a speech pathologist or a social worker who knows you, but then you may be transitioning to a new person there again. It also creates some inefficiencies. We have about 21 specials teachers who are traveling back and forth between schools. Travel time is time that they're not with students. It also creates some inefficiencies in facilities utilization. We started the STEAM program a few years ago. It's a very successful program. But if a STEAM teacher is split between 2 schools, that room is only being used part of a day, or some days at one school, and it's sitting vacant while they're at their sister school or another school. Creates some issues with busing as well, right? There's transition time or time on buses where students are moving, where the buses drop off at one school and then another. So we increase the number of buses, the routes and the time that students were on buses from moving away from the neighborhood model and into that consolidated K2, 3, 5. Curriculum, there's some impacts as well. It's when you have a transition moving between schools, so that break between 2nd and 3rd grade, right? That's going to kind of impact our vertical alignment, but it's also going to impact the teacher's abilities to see what their prior year teachers doing. They're going to have, it's harder to get information about a student from the prior year. It's one thing to go down and talk to a teacher down the hall. It's another thing to try and email someone across town to get information on a student's prior performance. So we've lost a little bit of that cohesion between the grades. And I think a really big impact is the connections of the students to the school. So if you're in a school for 3 years, it's a different connection. You have different connections to your administrators or teachers than if you're in a building for a longer period of time. But a really significant impact is for families that have students in multiple schools. It's not unheard of to have a student in an intermediate and an elementary school, or in some cases the pre-K, intermediate, and elementary schools. And that kind of impacts connection to the school as well. If there's 2 nights or 2 events or 2 things during the day, that's more difficult for parents who are working to get off work for 2 events than for 1 event for the schools. So looking since we took and made that major change in 2011, our student population has changed as well, right? So when we're looking at this, Mr. Dresek shared some information earlier this year, and looking since we restructured, we can see that the needs of our students have grown. A student is considered high needs if they're English learners, received free or reduced lunch, or are a student with a disability. So kind of looking at the data, in 2011 and 12, we had 2,640 kids and about 46% of those students were considered high needs. So if you look to 2021-22, we're at about 2,190 total students, but we're at 56.6% students who are high needs. So the 2013-14 school year was the last time the district-wide pre-K to 5, the population was not minority, or it was not majority high needs. So with 450 students, also fewer over that time, you would kind of think that there'd be plenty of room in our schools for specials like art, music, STEAM, and student support services. But kind of when we started looking carefully at the buildings, you can see some of the challenges. So I've just chosen a few buildings for tonight, but you take a look at Henry Barden. Built in 1964, currently has 408 students. It houses the DLP program and what was the old central office or admin wing. So if we look at how Henry Barnard was designed, so green is kind of your general education classroom, red is administration, and when it was designed, that was you can see the large portion was the admin wing. Blue is our specials, and the orange there is the student supports. So that could be anything, speech and language, school counselors, special ed, or so on. You can see it was more centralized in the core of the building, but generally most of our schools were a similar layout and similar specs. So since it was designed, you can see the major shift in how the space is being utilized. So it went from 24 grade level classrooms to 21. And there's 4 specials rooms, but we offer 6, right? So that means somebody's on the cart or someone's pushing into a library. But we've moved to 24 student support rooms in the building. We've included the Family Resource Center in that central area, but 5 of the classrooms have been converted. And typically in the schools, we're seeing that what were the kindergarten classrooms added in 2001 or 2 are being converted to kind of special program classrooms because of the availability of bathrooms or other special fixtures within the room. Looking at Whitney, built in 1967, 344 students, houses our ECP program and our IAL program. In 2002, about 56.4% of the students were identified as high needs compared to 43% in 2011-12. So Whitney, very similar to Barnard in design, right? 24 grade level classrooms, 5 specials, 10 student support rooms. But similarly, you can see just through the color change how the spaces are being used. We've gone from 24 classrooms to 18 grade level classrooms. We now have 6 specials rooms at this school, so they all have a house, but there's 13 support rooms. And the community health centers were added, I think, back in 2010 or 11. But in that building, we have 6 converted classrooms, right, that are being needed to house some of our student support services. And finally, one of my favorite places to go visit, but one of the most challenging spaces in the district is Stowe, right? Originally designed as a grade 1 through 6 building in 1963. It's now housing our Pre-K STEAM Academy, integrated PK, Head Start, and the ECDC programs. So they're infant, toddler, school age programs as well. So Stowe has had quite a bit of work done to it. It's had renovations in 2014, 15, 16, 19. As the program keeps growing, spaces continually need to be converted to accommodate it. And back in 2019, they had to add air conditioning to move students into the gym. Just last year, they added bathrooms because we were right at the capacity, and we needed to add bathrooms to remain in compliance. So it takes a lot to convert a school into essentially a building that's housing PK programs. And with this, you can see that a significant percentage of the students are high needs, approximately 75%. And that's because a lot of the students who are coming into our pre-K programs are in there because that's program requirements have mandate to serve high need students. Stowe, we've looked at every possible way to figure out if we can get more students in there. So right now, we have 4 pre-K STEAM classrooms. We have 4 AM and PM integrated, so the rooms are used twice a day. 5 Head Start classrooms, 1 shared room that's Head Start, one part of the day, integrated the next. We have the Enfield Child Development Center, ECDC, has 6 classes in what was the play lab and the gym. So we lost the play lab to convert to 2 classes. The gym is divided up into 4 classes, and that's why we had to put the air conditioning in 2019. And then there's the 8 ECDC rooms in the school. We're full at Stowe. Some of these are things that I helped create. Occupational and physical therapy is happening on the stage in what was the old cafeteria, the stage. We have cabinets dividing it from an ECDC classroom. 2 groups could be in there at a time. On the other side of those cabinets is the picture below, and there's 2 classrooms also divided by cabinets in what was the play lab over at Stowe. The meeting room / PD room / movement room is split in 2, and there's other services offered, or other uses on the other side. And then you can see the picture below is some ECDC has 4 classrooms with office dividers in the gym, and that's just one of the classrooms that they're using there. To kind of sum it up, we've got 29 converted grade level classrooms, so about 21% of classroom space, and that's just K-5. Everything's converted at Stowe, right? They were all grade level converted to pre-K rooms. So we have specials and services on carts or in the library in 4 schools. We've converted many of the closets and non-instructional spaces in the schools, converted to offices for social workers, for speech language pathologists, and so on. And we know that there are additional student supports needed, right? As students progress through grades, we know that there's additional changes we're going to have to make to the schools as we go. So it might look like on the special rooms that we're improving. We've moved from 30 to 32, but we added specials since the schools were designed. STEAM wasn't a special when we started, so we're down a few of those. And so the student support rooms, we've gone up to 78 rooms in our schools that are serving students with needs. So our schools average about 62 years old. All right. So many of the building systems are kind of coming to the end of their useful life and need to be scheduled to be repaired or replaced. So the Town of Enfield Department of Public Works put together a capital improvement plan to estimate the cost to maintain the facilities over the next 10 years. Aside from projects such as roofs, which have already gone to referendum, this doesn't really represent bid or quoted work, doesn't really account for inflation, and it doesn't really account for things that are found when you start a project. I don't know if anyone's done a home improvement project that has a little bit of scope creep as you find that more and more things need to be replaced as you open up walls. That's not accounted for in this. So this would be a very significant investment for the town and the taxpayers, but it's important to point out here that this doesn't account for any required or mandated changes that may come down the line, and it doesn't account for enhancing programming. This is just an estimate to maintain 60-plus-year-old buildings as they are. So this is all on the website. We have these for all of the schools. But this is Hazardville Memorial, for example. To maintain Hazardville Memorial, as it is, $7.298 million. You can see that they have some projects like roof, windows, boilers, steam pipes, parking lot, electrical service panels, steam pipes, windows, and egress doors in just for the next 2 fiscal years are what are estimated on the books. And again, this is an estimate. When you start opening up each of these systems, things can become more. Crandall, 6.8, almost $6.9 million to renovate Crandall, updating the systems, maintains the building as it is, programs as they are. Stowe, which has had work, almost $3.5 million. And it goes on for all the other schools. So when you're looking at $36 million, that doesn't require additional renovations we know we need for special purpose classrooms. That doesn't account for movement spaces for the rooms, bathrooms being added, some of the common rooms or specialized equipment needed for these. It doesn't account for renovations for additional mandated support rooms that may be coming. Some of our schools are getting close on their ESOL student populations, which could mandate a dual language program in the schools, which would require a space for that program. And it doesn't account for the potential for universal pre-K. Right, we hear about this somewhat regularly from politicians as they debate whether they're going to mandate pre-K. But if that did come down the line, we need to figure out spaces for that as well. $36 million doesn't account for changes in educational model. Picture above is a STEAM room at JFK. We've kind of been having our students model, presenting to each other and working out solutions in small groups, and we've provided spaces for them, flexible spaces for them to do that. Kind of our STEAM rooms, when we put them together for the intermediate schools, we have folding tables. So the rooms were set up in originally a very teacher-centered arrangement as opposed to a more flexible student-centered space. It doesn't account for changes in technology. As we look to add technology to 60-plus-year-old buildings, they did not plan for Ethernet to be wired in through the building for access points. That adds additional costs as you try and retrofit it into buildings. Enhancing the arts. If you've seen the amazing auditorium, if you've seen the wonderful art rooms, the new kilns they have over at JFK, those opportunities, we should probably be looking at providing those equal to our elementary students. And after-school programming, right? If you have the space, if you have the renovated spaces, you can offer more things after school. If you've seen the robotics room at JFK, right, you can imagine a space similar to that being used for after-school activities at the 3-5. But also community uses from the building. We've started moving a lot of activities over to JFK. Wonderful auditorium, great cafeteria, a good place to house activities. $36 million doesn't account for HVAC improvements. The town of Enfield has done energy upgrades to the buildings. They put a significant investment in making sure changing out lighting controls, efficiency in how devices are used, load control. However, Crandall has 33 window air conditioners. When you have those window-style air conditioners, we needed them for humidity control, right, for the building. Every room at Stowe is required to have air conditioning as a preschool. And more we kind of see that students and even staff are coming with medical requesting air conditioning in a classroom. When these buildings were designed, air conditioning wasn't a consideration. They figured the kids were going to be out for the summer, good enough. Most of the buildings also weren't designed with power to power 33 window air conditioners and laptops and iPad carts and projectors, right? The rooms have two outlets, an outlet for a fan and like an overhead projector, right? That's what was expected when the rooms were built. So anytime you retrofit something in, you stick a air conditioning in what was a window, you're never going to be as good as a design solution. So I took a thermal image last Wednesday and just one air conditioner over at Memorial. It was 45 degrees out, and the air coming in, and the area around the air conditioner where that blue crosshair is 47, right? And it's hard to see from the picture, but there's a little bit of black, and that's just air coming in, around it, right? You can imagine with those leaks that we've kind of built up some cumulative inefficiency. So when you take the inefficiency of a 1950s, 60s design, plus possibly hundreds of air conditioners across the district, when you look at these buildings, that can end up with some pretty high utility costs. Now, we had a pretty mild fall and early winter. It was actually, I think, some of the warmest on record. But if you take a look at our utility costs, for just the last 6 months, the 7 elementary schools had $285,000 in utility bills. All right. Now, we had a rate increase in January where my rates nearly doubled for electricity. So what's electricity and gas going to be to heat these buildings for next year? $750,000, $800,000 just for 7 of the schools. So I think this unnecessary waste just kind of starts to add up over time, right? So if you're thinking $800,000, that's almost 11 or 12 teachers. salaries. If you think about that over, I'm sorry, yeah, it's close. So we have a lot of cumulative inefficiency. So,
John, can I just, because I can't help myself. This is not mine, but can you go back to the last one?
yeah,
So when you mentioned the art kilns, some of you, Tina, you may be the only one who remembers this. We used to have kilns in all of our elementary schools. We had an issue with some lead glaze a number of years ago, and all the kilns needed to be removed. We did purchase new kilns to put in all of our elementary schools. The problem is by the time we got the new kilns, we had reutilized the power that was for the kilns for other reasons, as John mentioned, like air conditioning and technology. So we have the kilns, we just can't install them because the panel is full. No different than in your home where you have a certain upgrade, ampage for your. I have to YouTube changing a light bulb, so that's why John's doing this. But like, we're out of power in some of these buildings as well. And when I saw the kiln thing, I didn't realize if everyone remembered that misery. Kathy remembers that because I remember Dr. Gallagher yelling at us.
so the town has a track record at this point. With the high school and middle school, town has shown it can manage projects and bring about real change for our students, and can do so in a fiscally responsible way. So I believe it's time to look at the structure of our pre-K through 5 schools and bring them up to the standards we've set for our middle and high school. It's time to comprehensively plan for reduced transitions in buildings and between levels. Look at pre-K accessibility and space for our schools. Look at high-performance classrooms, kind of using universal design principles like we've seen over at JFK. Streamline our transportation for our students. Look at what we can do to add enrichment opportunities for them, and kind of look at infrastructure and have infrastructure that's designed with technology integration, HVAC in mind. And I added the picture of a school with solar panels up top because I think with technology we can do a lot better and get kind of near neutral with our utilities costs if planned accordingly. Also, something to consider is we actually have some of the highest state reimbursement for construction. Our general reimbursement rate is 70.79%, and the new construction is coming in at a little over 60% for new construction. So we've used it to our advantage for our last 2 projects. I think it's time we could take a look at it again. We've taken a look at the schools. We kind of know what some of the problems are, but we've kind of gone as far as we can go from our side. We need a little bit more. We need some detailed demography information. You've seen that our population is changing. We need to know what it's going to look like for the next 8 to 10 years. We need a little bit more of an existing condition study, similar to like what was done for the JFK project, or you have design professionals come in and take a look at the systems and other things and give us a real cost breakdown. What's our cost benefit on renovating or replacing some of our school buildings? We need more stakeholder input. We've kind of looked at the data ourselves, but we need to hear from students. We need to hear from parents. We need to hear from students who are receiving support services, right? What do they need? And we need some professional estimates on design and estimates for proposed solutions for some of the K-5 buildings. What we're proposing is creation of a school modernization committee with kind of the following goals of kind of looking at removing some of the barriers to access. What I mean by that is things like our pre-K availability. We know that there are certain parents who would love to get their kids into pre-K. We don't necessarily have the rooms for that. We have some of our areas that have been taken, had to be reutilized, play labs, the gym at Stowe. We have some specialists who are in locations that aren't necessarily universally accessible to students. So we'd like to look at some of those things. Collect information regarding the existing conditions of the building, kind of prioritize our recommendations for improvements based on student family needs, special education best practices, SEL, SPED, et cetera. Look at alternate configurations for the schools. Look at the changes in our educational model. As I mentioned before, most of our rooms, when they were set up with a teacher center model, where the teacher's kind of at the front of the room, presenting from there. We've seen some really creative arrangements of classrooms around centers and other things. If you've been over to Crandall, fourth grade wing, Miss Bruce, others have done a really nice job kind of redesigning their rooms. But really looking at reducing our transitions for our students. And then recommend possible building space reuse to meet some of our current educational, family, and community needs, and also school security.
Okay, now it's my turn. I was kidding. He is the smartest person I know. I don't think people will recognize that what John just did for you is probably about 2 years worth of work that he got done in less than 5 months. The amount of detail that if you use the QR code and start looking at the information that he's made readily available, not just for members of the board, but we thought it was important for the community to see that as well. I also think John was being a bit polite although the $36 million figure was developed from working in coordination with our partners on the town side, particularly buildings and grounds, we all know that that's going to be a much higher number. There's certain systems within the buildings that are due to be replaced over time, but we also know that there are pipes in the walls that are going to have to come out, and we've lived through that through the previous building projects. But the reason that, and just kind of reiterating what John had said, is this is kind of as far as we can go. And I say that because at some point, the 9 of you and really the 11 council members need to make some decisions as to what you would like us to do moving forward. And when I say us, I also mean in conjunction with our partners in the town. The manager was planning on coming tonight. These are conversations we've had ongoing for the last several months. She had another presentation until 8, so unfortunately she wasn't able to make it with the rescheduling. But realistically, we just proposed a budget to the town council. In one of the charts, John mentioned, you can see school by school, what's on tap for next year's capital improvement money. That is money that the town has to support in addition to what we ask for to operate our schools. The manager needs to know before we start putting that capital improvement money into these, as John just displayed, very old facilities. Is this a conversation that the 20 elected officials want us to start having about, let's start looking at this from a different lens and start planning? Because one way or the other, there's an investment here. There's $36 to $50 million over the next 10 years that the community is going to have to pay to keep what you have, to just, basically keep the existing structures, get them livable, because they're still going to be at their core 60, 70, in some cases 80-year-old facilities. Or do you want us to start taking another look at the way we're doing things around here? That has immediate implications for the budget process, because I can't speak for the manager. She hasn't completed her budget yet, but the council's going to begin their deliberations. There's only so much money to go around. So within that, if this is a direction that the board would like to go in and ultimately the council would need to be a part of those conversations, then maybe investing $15 million in next year's operating budget for capital improvement money, there's a better use for those funds because we are exploring other options. I can't make that decision. The manager can't make that decision. But we're at a sort of a crossing point here where we need some direction from the elected folks in town as what direction do you want us to go in. The first step, as John would mention, was the formation of a school modernization committee. It can be initiated by the board. The board would also offer up at least 2 spots on that committee to members of the council that would be chosen, obviously, from the town council representation. We've done this before. As John mentioned, we are all here for some of the transitions that we've had, but we've also learned from that. And this is not a negative. We did the best we could with the information we had at the time. We have the benefit of hindsight and additional information. One voice we didn't hear a lot of the last time we did this was from our teaching staff. These were administrative decisions, elected official decisions, and people were told. That's not a negative way. That was the environment we're in. If we're going to start looking at how we operate, that's a voice that we need at the table this time. I say that because if the board does decide to start this committee this evening, this isn't a decision that I can make on my own. This is a decision I can make a recommendation. You can ask me a recommendation. I can tell you what I think. Ultimately, it's your decision, and you have to do it in partnership with the town. One thing that I will state publicly, though, is I'm not comfortable making a recommendation until I hear from the people who have to actually implement this stuff. We haven't gotten that far yet. People on social media, calm down. We didn't close anything yet. We're not shifting any. We're not doing any of that yet. But we need to know, do we want to just keep doing what we're doing? And then we have to, we do have to swallow the price tag that comes along with that. And there's an immediate impact on that because I don't want to speak for the council, but there's a very large capital improvement money, dollar amount that has to be figured into next year's operating budget. Once it's there, it's there. And that's less than the town council can support what you had asked for through your proposed budget as we start getting into those deliberations. So these conversations need to start happening. The answer could be no. We like the way things are. We're going to keep it. We're going to patch up things. We'll take the air conditioners out and spackle the walls. Okay. But it's also an opportunity. If we know we have old facilities, we know it doesn't necessarily meet the needs. And the most important thing John did better than I did when I brought this to you months ago was I've gotten a lot of questions over the last 8 to 12 months about, the needs of our kids. And people were like, there was almost a sense of surprise. Like, when did this happen? You're an Alliance district now. Well, John pretty much articulated the needs of our kids have transitioned beyond 10 years ago, 12 years ago in some cases. So this was a systemic change that's happened based on the needs of our kids and our families in town that have been going on for some time. We just haven't changed necessarily the way that we operate. And that's also something that's imperative too. So I did want to mention and John, just to put in context, because I don't want people to think, well, traveling teachers, just to put for people at home, you guys understand this. John had made reference to 21 teachers that currently travel. What that means is you have a full FTE, a full teacher, and if we use their elementary teachers, but if we use the model of a high school, that's 7-period day. That teacher, by contract and by right, is they have to have a duty-free lunch and a prep period. So out of a 7-period day, a teacher will teach 5 periods. Well, if you're traveling, you have to give them a period to travel as well. So you have a full-time teacher who can teach up to 5-6 classes in a day, but when they're traveling building to building, you're really only getting them for 4. And they don't want to travel, but that's the system that's designed this way. But you're still paying for a full FTE. So when we talk about efficiencies, there's a lot of inefficiencies that have developed over time. It's no one's fault. It's we have to be very reactive. One of the biggest things we heard when we first took these jobs was, what's your plan? Now, we had a little thing like a pandemic in the middle that kind of screwed that whole planning up about when we were going to roll this out. But now's the point where we need to start having these conversations. So, John, thank you for what you do. I know they're going to have questions for you, so that's why I wanted to jump in before they did. It is on your agenda for this evening if the board would like to form this committee as a new action item. But I wanted to put some of that stuff in context before you guys got to your questions for John.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Daig. Mr. Ryder?
So through the chair to the superintendent, and I'm rounding, but the reimbursement rate for JFK and the high school was 71.x, or just under 71%, so 70.79. That was a rebuild.
Renovate is new, yeah.
Yeah, Renovate is new, and a new building is roughly 60% reimbursement presently.
Presently.
So through the chair to the superintendent, being an Alliance district, would that change our reimbursement rates theoretically if we were to entertain something like this?
You can answer that now if you'd like me to. Potentially, yes. I have had conversations with the state, and they don't have a definitive number for me at the moment, but they are in the process of finding that information out for me. So our same contact that I have had discussions about the transferring of Nathan Hale, which the board voted on a few weeks back. It's the same office. They have shared with me that they believe that to be the case, but they want to confirm it before they give me a number. But there is the potential that that number would be higher as an Alliance district, yes.
So theoretically, and again, this is like a 10-year pie-in-the-sky plan that, like you said, we need a committee, we need a lot of work goes into this. But what would, if we're going to pay $36 million as taxpayers and residents and parents and students, by the time this is all done, they'll all be adults and paying taxes as well. We're going to be spending, you said, approximately $36 million, and that's without a surprise, et cetera. So even pretending that number is real versus it being 50 or more, because it might be double that number with inflation and who else knows what could happen in the next 8 to 10 years. If we were to put that same 36 million into something new, if our cut was 36 for nothing or 36 for something new, and we'd be getting 71% back, theoretically, at least, maybe more as an alliance district, what nut are we looking at? I mean, like, how much would we be getting for $36 million?
We don't know. There's a lot of what ifs at this point in this process.
He's doing the math in his head.
I know. He is the smartest person you'll ever meet.
I didn't have enough zeros on my calculator.
But I don't know. There's a lot of hypotheticals within that. What is it going to look like? How many are we rebuilding? And I know we look at, and it's important to call this pre-K because as John articulated, and I probably failed to do during the budget presentation, we're out of room at Stowe. So Stowe needs to be in this conversation. So although people don't consider Stowe an elementary school, we're talking about 7 buildings here. So building 7 new facilities, that $36 million isn't really going to scratch the surface because that's, as we're talking about that $36 million, if anybody thinks the $36 million is really going to be $36 million, I could sell you some crypto. Like, that's going to be where we're at. Like, we know that because we know there's going to be surprises. What that equates to in something new, it's impossible for us to know at this point because we don't know what the end game is. So before, he could probably give you a number, but before we did, I wanted to sort of set the expectations of we don't really know. I don't want to put numbers on it because people will hear that and just run with it. So I'm very cognizant of, okay, this is an opportunity to look at, is the way we're currently doing things, we just need cleaner spaces? Do we want to reconfigure? We've talked about challenges that we're having with our current configuration. The elephant in the room is, if you start here, Ms. Pickett, I'll pick on you because I know your kids went through there, and we've talked about this. Your kids are going to have 5 transitions before they walk across that stage and then feel high.
Right.
We know that regression during transitional years is a thing. So is this a time to look at that? Because we also have this albatross around our neck of we have 70-year-old spaces. So before we do any of that, is this a conversation that we have to have? But this is kind of why we're jumping off the train now, because this isn't a decision that John or I can make and say, nope, we need to go this way. We certainly, you pay us to have input, but we need to get the input from a lot of stakeholders in this community to find out what the appetite is for.
Right.
And I can jump in here. This would be very similar to the pre-referendum process for Enfield High School.
Yep.
We were looking and you're evaluating which site, you know what I mean? What's the value analysis? We can't do that value analysis ourselves. We kind of need that demographer report. We need the input from the professionals. When they came back and said it's going to be $40 million, to renovate Fermi because of ADA compliance, soil issues, or so on, that kind of changes the picture, right? So we could give you our recommendations now in a ballpark, but a design professional could come back. They could do the phase 1 site assessment at a building and say, nope, you can't build anymore here. So we need to kind of run through that kind of pre-referendum process and then bring you back a range of solutions.
So this is my last question. So if your ask is, and I don't mean yours, John, I mean, if the superintendent's office asked to the school board, is the suggestion is to create the school modernization committee to at least look into this? How do you see that committee being structured?
I would,
Because we'd want
if I would like
families
to see,
input, we would want staff input, we would,
kind of similar to the pre-referendum committee, what I would suggest is 2 members of the board, 2 members of the town council, look at accounting at least for 2 teachers, 2 parents, getting student represented, maybe not at every meeting, but getting some student voice in to provide input on it at a few of the meetings, have it meet over a period of time, and at some point, bringing in a architect or design team to help finalize or figure out the solution, do the cost estimating, and come up with some preliminary designs and a site analysis. So the committee can really be, as few as 10, 12 people, but it could be more if you wanted to include them. We meet somewhat regularly, probably at each of the school sites, to get a sense of what's happening at each and start forming the plan.
Thank you, John. Those are my questions.
I
Sorry.
usually go last, but I just wanted to add to this for just to give information to the board, is I was on that pre-ref committee for the high school. And so I think we did have student representatives from Fermi and Enfield High. We had, I think we maybe had 3 parents. I want to say there was either, 2 to 4 from the town council, maybe 2 to 4 for the Board of Ed. I'll have to rack my brain on that. We met weekly. By the time we started meeting, though, we had the cost comparisons between the schools and different issues we were going to see with the school. And then that pre-ref committee kind of said, this is what we think, it should be Enfield High. We held community conversations so that people could come and ask questions and have, get some information out that way. So I see this is the way you'd want that committee to go. Exactly. It's pretty similar to that.
I was on that committee
yes,
as well.
Yes, that's right.
So,
it seems like
a while ago.
Yeah. So when you brought that up, I was like, that makes a lot of sense to have it modeled after the pre-ref. So thank you for bringing that up. Ms. Pickett?
First, I just want to thank you, John. The history you added and the enrollment info and the impact on student supports, I think, is really important context. And I still consider myself somewhat of a newbie. I've been here for 9 years, so understanding, that history was really important. So I know we are in infancy stages, so I'm going to try hard not to get into the weeds. But a couple things that I just think are important for me to note and important from my perspective. One is I'm wholeheartedly agreeing in a pre-K 5, actually I'm going to say K-5 model, so I'm a little bit protective of Stowe. I think preschool Stowe is amazing, and I think the collaborative and integrative ways that Jacqueline Valley has been able to program for students there is really impressive, and that comprehensive preschool model is actually what many towns are moving to, is like housing preschool in one place. So I'm glad that I heard a little bit of we don't know what exactly, and we're still discussing, because I think we need to really be looking at what's working there, and why is it working, and what impact might that have, or how do we program for that? The other wonder I have is the impact on staffing. So I like to hear that staff would be involved in this, because obviously some type of reconfiguration would impact staffing. But so ensuring that their voice is part of it. I'd like to maybe think about community collaboration. So I'm hoping Dr. Kalman and Jean will agree with me here, ways that we might be able to expand partnerships with school-based health centers, ensuring space for that kind of community collaboration within our schools, I think is something else we might want to consider. And my kind of wonder, wholeheartedly agree, but I also would love to hear kind of about how we are addressing current structures. The reality is we are in this K2, 3, 5 model for quite some time. So how are we ensuring some opportunities for alignment, that vertical alignment now, and not waiting until we kind of have a new design? So how can we prime staff to be ready for that and make some of those collaboration and efforts happen now? So thank you. No immediate questions. I'm appreciative. Just a lot to say. Very appreciative of the presentation. Really thoughtfully done. Love the QR code. Got it on my phone. So you, Dr. Wiley, and you, probably a dynamic duo. So thank you so much for that.
Actually, Madam Chair, just because I'll forget, because it is relevant, one of the questions that, it wasn't a question, so it wasn't through the chair, but with regards to, yes, this is not something that's going to turn over overnight. We don't even know what we're looking at this point. We just know this is as far as we can physically go without the support of you and ultimately the town council and the community. But to answer the question about what are we currently doing in this environment, I had mentioned at previous meetings that some of our kids in those transition years that we're doing some targeted intervention. But here is another real life logistical issue that we currently deal with. In order to get those kids in 2nd and 4th grade, or in 2nd and 5th grade currently, because we know those kids are leaving their schools next year, to give them targeted interventions, one of the things that to make it easier and more attractive for families to participate in, which actually starts, I think this week, right? We're starting this week, is we want to offer transportation. The problem is we don't have any buses to drive those kids home until 6 or 7 o'clock at night, because our buses are still doing the regular pickup and drop off because we really have a 4.5 tiered bus system right now. So as a bus driver, when you get to Smith Bus at 5:30 in the morning, and God bless all those folks, and they leave the yard, they go do the high school run, and they drop off at Enfield High, they go then do the JFK run. It's 2. When they're done at JFK, they go do the intermediate run. When they're done intermediate, they go do the primary run. And during that time, there's a whole separate run to do the pre-K students. So you really have 4.5. So when you talk about inefficiencies, and especially it gets exemplified when there are staffing shortages and busing shortages like we've experienced over the last few years. So there were times during last year that we couldn't transport student athletes at JFK over to the annex for practice because it's not that we didn't have, it wasn't a money issue for the first time ever. It was we don't have drivers to drive, licensed to drive them. We would love to put more interventions in for kids beyond the traditional school day. But we're a bit handcuffed at times because we know that providing things like transportation and snack and meals and all that stuff to get those kids in the door and keep them there, it's a challenge. But to shed a little bit more light on that, because I know that's come up through the curriculum committee, it wasn't our idea. When we went to the teachers in those grades and said, what do you need? You know these kids. No one knows our kids better than their teacher. And as part of this committee, the other representation that we definitely need, and I'm not trying to minimize administration or anyone else, is there has to be a clerical staff member represented because no one knows how those buildings run better than the front office staff. So it's important. Those are my 2, we're not doing this without that. But when we start getting involved in some of those conversations, we went back through the academic office and said, okay, go back and pull your teachers who have these kids on the ground and say, what do you need right now that we can do targeted intervention for those kids because you only have them for 6 more months. That mindset's going to continue. And we're going to build upon that because if anything were to change, we're years away. So we do recognize that we have to fill some of those gaps. Sorry, that was an opportunity to get off topic.
Mr. Hamry, then Dr. Kalman.
So first, thank you very much. This is eye-opening in a lot of ways, demonstrating the inefficiencies pretty clearly. It also, whether intentionally or not, demonstrated the resilience, the creativity that goes into particularly Stowe. With having classrooms in a gym, though, that if that doesn't scream, we need to do things to update or do something different, I'm not quite sure what would. The big thing that jumps out to me, though, from the whole presentation is that we are the first step in a very long process, and Superintendent alluded to that, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, but we are the first step to make that process possible, but by far we're not the only ones. So that ultimately, and having been through the referendums and all that for the years past, particularly that reorg, it's not us that has the final say, it's the voters that would approve it. And nothing happens without that referendum, just based on my own personal experience from a town resident and voter. So I appreciate the presentation tonight. Thank you very much.
Dr. Kalman.
Thanks, John. This was an eye-opener for me, too. And after listening to you, there's just no question in my mind, at least, that we can't continue to just move all of our money that we've designated for capital investments just in maintaining the schools. It just doesn't make any sense financially. So, I guess this shouldn't even be asked at this time. It's for the committee. What you're asking for today is for us to agree to form a committee to investigate the project further, or even whether or not we want to pursue the project. So I shouldn't be asking this question, but I'm going to anyways, because if you get everything you want, everything, what time frame are we looking at?
So time frame, it depends on what the committee selects.
Okay, but if you got your wish list, if you got everything that you...
Realistically...
John, I'm not going to make you be the face of this. I know, he looked over quick.
He's like, should I tell that?
We all have opinions. And our opinions are not just based on but we also have had hundreds of conversations with those people who are most impacted, traditionally families and staff members. So we don't know what this is going to look like. This committee, you're right, is the first step to say, okay, we want you to explore something besides just putting the Band-Aids on the buildings. We will then be present during those committees, as well as having the importance of having staff members and families as part of that, to say, this is what else is possible. And do we collectively, as a committee of 10 or 12, make a recommendation to the Board of Ed to say, look, if you're going to go down this road, similar to what you had mentioned earlier, Madam Chair, with the previous committee with the high schools, was we think you should consolidate to one and it should be Enfield High. That would be sort of the charge of this committee, is to come back to the 9 of you to make that recommendation. If we do it correctly, it's not just the 9 of you. There's 11 who sit in this chamber on Monday nights who need to be part of this process as well, because even if the board says, yes, we want to change the configurations of our schools, that's not your decision to make, because you don't put referendum questions on, the town council does, which is why that partnership with the council and as well as my office and the manager's office is so vital to make this, because we also recognize that there is a lot of decisions that need to be made, as Dr. Cowan mentioned, financially in some of these buildings that have an impact on what we're able. I'm going to go back to what you said, Amanda. I would love to do more, but there's going to be a money issue soon. Because, and I can't point the finger at the council and say you're not supporting the budget, because they're paying to fix the leaky roof or to swap out windows. There's only so much money to go. But going back to your concern, Dr. Callan, it's not going, we will have our voice there as well as the stakeholders that will. Part of our role throughout this committee is to, there's going to be parents and staff members, but, some parents may not know that certain things aren't logistically possible, or the way things certainly operate. Our job is to sort of clarify this group so that there's a united, this is what we believe we should do. I don't want to jump ahead of myself on what that's going to look like. Trust me, we've all heard the recommendations or the wish list that people would like to see. Ultimately, that's not our decision to make, but it will be recommended to the 9 of you, and then the process has to be followed along with the council to say, in a perfect world, this is what we want to do. Do we want to go out to the voters of the town of Enfield to support this plan? We can't do any of that because before you can go to referendum, you have to know how much this is going to cost. And in order to do that, what John had mentioned was, although we have some rough numbers, in that $36 million on what it's going to cost to upkeep this, we really need professionals to come in, just like they did at JFK and just like they did at Enfield High and at Fermi, was to come in and say, look, this is how much it's really going to cost to maintain your building over the next 10 years. Your boiler system is at end of life. There's other factors into it about if you want to keep the configuration, your land works. If you want to put more kids, you need more acreage. Some of our lots may not fit that. So we may all be thinking we want to go from X school to X school, and that's the one we're going to choose. Everyone has their favorite. That school may not work. And if I recall, the original recommendation on the high school one wasn't where we ended up. So these things are pretty fluid. You can't do any of it because someone has to give you a number on what, once you decide what you want to do as a committee, you may say we want to go in a direction of, like it used to be. I'm just hypothetically throwing it out there. Then we have to come up with what it's going to look like, how much it's going to cost. Professionals will do that. We, meaning you in this committee, have to go to the State Department of School Construction and tell them, this is what we want to do, this is how much it's going to cost. They have to tell us yes or no, you're going to get your reimbursement and what that rate's going to be. Because ultimately, that's the number that goes on the referendum. So there's a lot of things. We could be aggressive time-wise. I don't want to lock ourselves into anything, but the conversations need to start now. Did that answer?
I know shouldn't have asked that question. Once we come up with a number as to how much this is going to cost, and the state has to let us know how much, if they're going to reimburse, what is the process? Is the budget re-examined every year, or are we given a lump sum? I'm very naive about this sort of thing.
For a referendum project?
Yes.
So it's a little unique because you're dealing with so many schools here. So like, I'll use JFK as an example. Like, we knew what the renovation cost was. We knew what the cost was to maintain the building as it was. we hired the design professionals. They came in and gave you a cost of, and then it designed sort of not the actual building, but a rendering of what it would look like. There was a dollar amount on that. We then went to the state with the dollar amount and said, we want to build a new building. This is what it's going to look like. This is how much it's going to cost. Will you pay your share? Once we get that formal letter from the state that says, yes, we'll pay, it's 70%. So the town commitment is $21 million, let's say. The referendum question is $21 million. If that passes, then the town of Enfield has $21 million to build that facility. The design may change from inception. If you all recall, Scott, I'll pick on you because you were involved very deeply in the JFK one. The first JFK rendering looks nothing like JFK now. There was some different conversations about building space and usage and all that stuff. The state doesn't care. If they approve your amount, that's how much you're getting. The referendum, the taxpayers are going to approve. If they do, we'll spend this much. And then we then have to go in and actually hire an architect and a builder and do all of that stuff.
Okay, so we're committed to
You're committed to that number.
Okay, regardless of how long the process takes, that's the amount of money
Now,
that's been.
what you're seeing in other communities that are already sort of knee-deep in building projects, the effects of COVID have changed their original price. So I won't use the name, but there was an existing project going on. And while the project was going on, they referendumed a certain dollar amount. Well, then prices went through the roof. They couldn't get supplies. So what was supposed to be a $20 million project is now a $30 million project. Well, the taxpayers in that town only approved $20 million. They had to go, I don't know if they had to go back to referendum or they had to get special permission from the state to adjust the number because of the conditions. But we can't do anything until we tell the state how much money we're going to spend.
Okay.
We can't tell you how much money it's going to be because we don't know what it's going to look like because we've gone as far as we can. We need more input to say this is really the direction we want to go in as a community. We will certainly be there as the professionals to help assist with some of the logistics and the recommendations to it. But ultimately, what comes back to you guys, the conversation jointly goes with the town council like it has in the past to say, yep, we want to move this to referendum. Let's get it on.
I think go ahead. Do you want me I was just going to try to add,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
maybe there's a gray area here. So the charge of the committee is going to be, do we stay K through 2, 3 through 5? Clearly there's not enough space. The transitions are an issue. So do we look at the pre-K through 5 model? So I think those are going to be the first two decisions that the committee is going to have to make. And then you bring in the other folks, the architects, to drop renderings. We make a final decision on the committee of we're going back to K through 5 and we need X amount of schools. And then you'd go to the state at that point. And then once you have your model down, your model's like what you're going to do for the schools. Let's say there's like 4 K through 5 schools. At that point, then you have meetings where you start bringing in the stakeholders telling you what they'd want to see. Like you might have the guidance counselors come in. We would have meetings that were like 2 hours long, but every half an hour there was a different department coming in talking about what they were going to do at Enfield High. Science, English, what courses they were going to add. So as far as coming up with the cost, like Mr. Drezek said, we have to figure out first what we're going to do. And I didn't want people to think that the stakeholders wouldn't be involved right away. It's just that they are involved once the decision is made. You will have staff on that pre-ref committee to help get to that decision. And then they're definitely brought in because the community is going to want to know. And I thought when the staff was presenting for the high school, it was amazing to be able to see what their ideas were, that what they could do for the students, because like Mr. Drezek said, they know the buildings, they know the students better than we do. So,
And that ended up changing the design of the building too. Originally, Enfield High the E-wing was like a mall. There was like open light wells all the way through the 3 floors or whatever. And after, about 30 minutes of the architects hearing that was going to be a disaster, the design was reworked.
I think the other thing to add to this too, I can go around. I don't, if anybody else, I just had to add a couple things too. The other thing that the committee is really going to have to focus on is once we figure out what we're going to do as far as the reconfiguration, the last thing we want is more empty buildings in Enfield. So that's where the town's going to have to come in and be upfront about how they're going to repurpose buildings if we're not using them anymore. Because we do not want to keep empty school buildings in the town. And it's going to be such a large conversation, but an exciting conversation, because I think it's time to relook at what we did 10 years ago. Our students have changed, our population has increased, and back when they did the reconfiguration, Josh, they were telling us that enrollment was going to severely decline, correct?
There was a lot of things said 10 years ago that that involved a lot of attempts to predict what could be, and I don't want to seem negative about it. I'm sure that they had best intentions and were using best information available, but the information that was discussed at the time was an enrollment that was going to decline. I don't think they could have anticipated the change in socioeconomic status, special needs, and of course the ever-loving mandates that we are always ever-present mandates that we are required to abide by.
I'm going to stop and I'll let Mr. LeBlanc go, and then Ms. Acree after.
So trying to wrap, this is a lot for anybody to kind of wrap their head around, and I think everybody could kind of have their own vision of what we may or may not be talking about. And I think it's harder because you kind of hit it right on the head. You're not talking about one particular school, you're talking about 7 and multi-year projects over the course of 7 different buildings. With that being said, and maybe your presentation touched on it a little bit, so if just say it was in the presentation if that's the answer to the question, but as I look at your capital improvement year over year, what's our stance on, is that that bare minimum of what we need to keep our buildings running? And I ask this, and I'm going to kind of relate to what my mind is thinking right now, is say everybody has different tea leaves going on of what we're talking about. But if we invest, I'm throwing out numbers, say we put $5 million into Hazardville Memorial for something, right? And then 3 years later, we do something like a renovate to new or a potential new school. It's going to come back and people are going to be kind of PO'd saying, well, we just invested all this money into this school 2 years ago. Why? At that point, it looks like a waste of money, right?
Why we need to start the committee, though, is to take a look and see if we can identify the model and start investigating some potential sites now, because then we'd have information to go back to the town and say, hey, maybe hold off on that investment while we're looking at this solution. I mean, roofs maybe could be patched for another year without a full replacement, in some cases, if we're deciding that, this isn't the site that we're looking to move forward with a new school, maybe those funds can be reallocated.
You worded it better than how I was trying to process it in my head. That's exactly what I'm getting at, is what is the bare minimum if there's a longer, bigger term game plan going on. So,
those numbers, that's a plan, right? There's only a few of those projects that have actually been to referendum. I think 2 of the roofs on that plan. But even so, if we came back and said in, 6 months or so, and they haven't actually put that to bid, there is potential that they could hold that money or reallocate that money. But that's at the discretion of the town.
Right.
Ms. Acree?
If your end game is to have 3 or 4, just say pre-K to 5 schools, would you still keep Stowe open, or is that completely out?
That's decision for the committee and the board.
Oh, it's still, okay.
I'm just going to redirect. It's not his end
I
game.
have
The risk of putting John up here was to mean John Daig wants to open up new schools. No, I think, and going back to what Mr. LeBlanc said as well, it's kind of all the stars are kind of aligning where we do need to make some decisions because we are due for some pretty large scale projects to, not renovate our existing schools, but to patch up some of our existing schools. So it could be very easy for, I don't have the ability to do it, to come back to the 9 of you and say, I want to open up 4 new elementary schools, pre-K to 5 or whatever. You can do that. You can say, okay, tell us what you want, and that's what we're going to move forward. I wouldn't do it. I'm not comfortable doing that because I think we need to have further dialogue within the community as a whole as to what do you want your schools to look like. And we need to have a seat at the table to say this is what our needs are that people may not know if they're not involved on a daily basis. But we also have to have our partners on the town council sitting here because ultimately they have to decide, are we putting this out to vote? I know it's tempting to get into what if we did this and what if we did that? That's the whole point of this group behind you. You will be represented by 2 board members. They're public meetings, so people will have the ability to show up to, I believe. Don't hold me to that. I think they were last time, so I'm going to imagine we would follow that same process. But there's a lot. I'm looking at this as an opportunity. Can we enhance what we're doing for kids and families? It might be just cleaning up the 7 buildings we have now, but we already mentioned, the chair mentioned this earlier, John's mentioned it more than once, we don't really fit. So we have to do something, and we know we have to do something soon because the town manager has to figure out how much she's putting towards capital improvement for us or funding the town and the board as a whole. So these conversations need to start happening now.
Mr. Ungar?
Thank you. Mr. Daigle, thank you very much for your presentation. Is this presentation on the website?
I'll add it after. What I put on the website, and I can actually... The data?
Yeah. No, it's not.
The data's on there, so the cost per each school. The graphics are like interactive, so if you're looking at that 10-year capital, you can just click on one school, turn them on, turn them off. All that data's there. And in the morning, I'll add the PowerPoint presentation to the same website. It'll just be another field. I just didn't want to put it up before presenting it to you.
So, to Mr. LeBlanc's and to the superintendent's comments, and I saw the same thing, that some of the costs for the modernization of the schools are heavily loaded on the front end, those costs. And so if this committee were to be formed, would need to make recommendations, I think, relatively soon, so that we wouldn't start incurring some of those major costs. What time frame would you expect to see? When would you like to have some sort of answer with regard to the committee? And I know that the superintendent also alluded to, he said, we're exploring other options, and I saw that you were very careful not to go beyond the modernization part of this thing, okay? And I can only, I would like maybe through the chair to the superintendent, maybe, I don't know if you're willing or prepared to discuss what some of those options were that you alluded to. But I was thinking, number one, the question, though, for you, Mr. Daigle, would be time frame. When would you like to see this committee report back with something?
So if the committee in the next few months could make a recommendation on the model that they'd like to go forward with, that gives us some time to hire a design professional, begin those demographic study, and start some of that design work. But it informs the town as the direction we're going, and then they can make their decision on whether they want to hold off on any particular potential capital project while we're investigating the solution further. So within the next few months for making a recommendation on the model, but then get the specifics, as quickly as we can get them.
Okay, thank you.
And I apologize. There was a question for me in there. I don't know if you want me. I didn't catch this. I was listening to John's.
Oh no, you had made a comment, and you said, we're exploring other options, and you said we're exploring other options, and so I was curious as to what those other options are you were exploring, and I'm only assuming that it could be some of the things that we were discussing here, but again, that's an assumption. So.
Yeah. So the other options would be like we're currently structured this way, the way we are now. Does it need to be that way? I don't know that. There are pros and cons for everything. One is people are comfortable and people are used to the way that we are. That's great. the community may say, we like the way things are, but we do need to address the space issue. We need to address some of the failing infrastructure and things along those lines. Are there opportunities to enhance what we're doing through possibly a different model? I can tell you from my experience in talking with predominantly parents and teachers, that there's a difference of opinion on maybe the direction we should go with the way that our schools are modeled. Not mine, but what I've heard from other folks. That's the other options that I think as a community we need to explore. We have one chance to do this. So before we go to the town and say, we need X amount of dollars to fix these 7 facilities and make more room and keep them up to standard and code, maybe that's not the direction that we as a community, not me or John, want to go in. I think right now we have to keep our mind open to anything, because this is a generational decision that ultimately is going to be tasked with the 9 of you recommending to the council. So we want to make sure every stakeholder that has an interest in this topic has the opportunity to express that, including us, because there are certain things that if we had to do over again, I'm certainly in hindsight, we would change. And the busing models was one of the things I mentioned earlier, that it's not the most efficient use of busing right now. So there's a lot. So that's what I was referring to when I made those comments.
Thank you.
Yep.
Dr. Kelman?
So if we decide that tonight that we want this committee to be formed, who will decide how it's going to be constituted? Who's the president? Will that be Tina's responsibility?
That would be the chair, yes.
Okay. And the membership, who specifically, what parts of our community will be represented would also be Tina's responsibility. Parents, other stakeholders, that would be her responsibility. Or would you share that with the mayor? I just don't know how that would work.
If the committee is originating so your vote tonight to endorse the committee would be authorizing the chair for the formation of the committee. And then essentially she would put out the application for community members to apply to be on it and ultimately choose that by her choosing. Again, part of that is council representation. So there would have to be a conversation with council leadership and the manager. The manager knows we're having this conversation tonight. She's going to wait for me to tell me me to tell her how it went. But ultimately, your endorsement tonight would be for the chair to form it, and that's the way it's been done traditionally in the past.
Mr. Ryder?
I agree with John and Jonathan. The reason why they're so front-loaded is because we have so many Band-Aids that need to be applied. That's the problem. So I think even if whatever this committee decides, a year from now or 2 years from now, whenever we get that kicked off, there's still holes that need to be filled until we get there. But this could save on other things. And also the back end numbers will also start going up when we don't fix the front end numbers. So besides Eagle, JFK, and the high school, our youngest building is 56 years old and our oldest is 70 right now. So that's part of the problem. Buildings are built differently, and look at JFK and look at the 70-year-old building, and they're just
I didn't
night and
mention
day.
that. So there's a lot of really clever things that were done with JFK, and some things we didn't even know we wanted until you actually saw them. Garage doors, right, are amazing, right? If you just run the robots through, but it's actually systems that are the most impressive. So let's say technology. Enfield Street School, when you have to run wireless access points into the buildings and rooms, you're drilling through block walls or you're cutting into ceilings. The fire sprinklers are just exposed in the hallway because the ceiling wasn't designed for them to be retrofitted, right? But at JFK, when they systematically look at the building, they run wire chases so that if you need to do upgrades in the future, you can just pull the wires right through, right? So it's meant that over the life, it's going to cost less, as far as your renovations or updates and so on. Our buildings are just going to get more expensive, right? As they need more systems or things we haven't thought of yet. People weren't thinking of internet in the 60s. What are we not thinking about now that's going to need to be added to an older building? When you've looked at the system as a whole, right, and you've designed, you're kind of that universal design that I was talking about before, you're intending for the future use of the building, making it so that it can be modified. I think that's something we've got to look at when we have buildings that are 56 to 70 years old.
Okay, I'll just finish up with a couple of different perspectives. I can start as a parent. I had kids in 3 different schools for a while, and if you want to get involved in the school and you work and there's a book fair one week at the other school and a book fair the next week or a field trip here, it definitely is a juggle for the families. The other thing I wanted to say is it's so important, as Mr. Drezek stated, to make sure that the staff is invested in the discussion, because the last time I don't know that was necessarily a top priority. The staff would come and speak to it, and I don't feel that they were always being heard. So it's very important that we listen to the staff on this. That reconfiguration never really saved money. Our busing increases went up. It just wasn't a savings. And if there's going to be cost savings in the future to this project, it's just going to be that we have buildings that run more efficiently. Because like you said, our buildings are very inefficient the way they're running. I mean, look at the picture with the air conditioner. The other thing I wanted to say is I've seen what JFK was like for Blackwing. So they would take a room and then they'd put up a partition, and like social studies would be taught on one side and English would be taught on the other. And it was just like a narrow space. And there's times that closets are converted to student spaces or to offices. We can't continue to teach like that because our population is going up and our enrollment. So we need to be aware of that. I mean, we can't be teaching out of closets and running out of space. I think the mobile dental that went to Crandall used the vice principal's office because there was just no space to put them. It's interesting because Ellington was a K through 2, 3 through 5, and they reconfigured. They went back to a K through 5. At the time, there was a lot of studies that said a town as big as Enfield really wasn't a good fit for a K through 2, 3 through 5 model. What I just kind of want to put out there is that the interesting thing about this committee, as we're talking about it, is, we only had 2 schools to pick from, and it was grades 9 through 12. So structuring this committee is going to have to be very intentional and very important because we're looking at 6 schools and we're looking at K through 2, 3 through 5, and hearing what the teachers have to say. After COVID, when the teachers got back into, even if it was hybrid, they were desperate for that collaboration to be back in those school buildings. And I could see, I really want to hear from them because they rely on that collaboration to get through their days if something's not working in one classroom or they're bouncing ideas off each other. So I really want to find a way on that committee to fairly represent the K through 5, K through 2, 3 through 5 type models, to hear what the staff has to say and to hear their ideas. So I'm just kind of like thinking out loud with that. But I think it's an exciting time here in Enfield. I think it's a great conversation to have. I'm excited to have it. I hope we form the committee and we start having these discussions, and we do this in the most intentional, positive way that we can. So thank you again. I appreciate it. Okay. Item 7, Superintendent's Report.
Okay, well, our student reps aren't able to make it with the rescheduling tonight, so you're just stuck with me. But the good news is I'm really quick. In your packet, the National Junior Honor Society induction ceremony. Your board and administration received invitations to JFK's Junior National Honor Society induction ceremony. That will be held on Wednesday, March 22nd at 6:30 p.m. in the auditorium. Their information is in your packet. And Mr. Rapucci also shared upcoming music performances that are enclosed in your packet as well. The first performance will be held on Friday, March 17th. That's the 17th Annual Strings Festival. The second performance will be held on Saturday, March 25th, which is the Enfield Chorus Festival. And the last bit of the Enfield Public Schools update is our new last day of school is now June 15th, given our most recent snow day. We're done. I know the weather guy said there's a possibility of another one at the end of the month. No. So, Mr. Ryder, when you had mentioned the amount of Fridays, I kind of cringed a bit because that's assuming we don't have any more weather days. But as of right now, we still have one more day built into the calendar. Our graduation date is for June 16th. So in a perfect world, we want to get out before or on that date, and we're still on schedule to do that. Anything beyond that, we're just going to say no. And that concludes superintendent's report.
Thank you. Next item, audiences. Okay, we have 3 speakers tonight. Due to the time, I'm going to keep it at 3 minutes. We have a lot more of, we have a few more things that we have to discuss this evening. So I'm going to keep it at 3 minutes. The first speaker is Walter Krusell.
Walter J. Krusell, 21 Charlie Road. If you indulge me, I just want to add to Mr. Diggs. Wasn't planning on it. Feasibility study has to be done. The state also is based, it's not only based on money, it's also based on square footage. You can't just come in with a double-sized building and expect them. They have their formulas for what square footage we can have and all that, so just keep that in mind. And it's a great presentation by Mr. Dagan. So here as a volunteer of the First Readers, we had an awesome event on February 25th. Thank you, Ms. Cushman. And thank you, Mr. Ryder. You were awesome is not a word. It's a power word I use, but it's not enough for what you did that night. It was phenomenal, the work you did. There was a time that the MC, I don't remember what song it was or whatever, but he threw a bone, and he even said, "You don't have this." Within 5 seconds, this man played that song. It was amazing. He just did an amazing job, and we raised a good amount of money. And then just to add, we had our first in-person ceremony back on the 8th. About 80 students attended, and it was actually 3 years to the day that we had our last in-person before what we now know is the China virus, that we had our last in-persons, which I filled in for the superintendent that night because they were on the phone trying to figure out what to close the schools for what was then 2 weeks. So it was a great ceremony. We had a great time. We had the kid mayor was there also. So just want to thank you. And the next ceremony, I believe, is June 4th. It's the first Monday in June at the high school. This time we did it at the JFK. That was a great facility as well. That's all I have. And you've gone past my bedtime, so I'm going home. Good night.
Thank you. Ginny Higley.
Ginny Higley, 48 Sapphire Street. I sit before you tonight as chair of the Enfield Democratic Town Committee. Our members have been reading about the hate mail that was sent to the members of the Board of Ed. They felt it was time to speak out. Our members have watched you all work very hard and give of your time. You show your dedication in making hard decisions at the meetings as well as during your subcommittees. We, the public, should keep in mind that you all are volunteers who serve our children. Never should the members be threatened by hate mail. This is no example of what we teach our children. No member should feel unsafe or threatened. It is not acceptable. Let's come together and show support for our Board of Ed members. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Higley. Liz Davis. Okay. Okay, audience is now closed. Board member comments. I'm going to start with Ms. Acree.
Good evening. I'm starting with from the desk of Mr. Andrew Dupere at Prudence Crandall. He says that Crandall is continuing to push and accelerate student learning in the classroom. Fifth graders celebrated completing their literary essays and author students by inviting special guests to share their projects. They had 65 families to attend this event. He also encourages for the community to make sure you order your yearbook and with the special messages for fifth graders. For more information about this yearbook, PTO President, please contact PTO President Jen Wheeler. I also have some other highlights for Crandall. On March 4th, 11 students from Crandall participated in the Infield Invention Convention that was held at JFK Middle School. These students completed a 13-week after-school program where they learned about the invention process and created inventions that solved real-world problems. Kid Mayor Tristan was tasked with introducing the special guests at Enfield's First Reader Celebration at JFK. Keep up the great work, Tristan, being our Kid Mayor. Partner schools Barnard and Crandall will have a special persons dance on March 25th, sponsored by the PTO. The time for this dance is from 12 to 2 p.m. Cost is $5 a pair. Please RSVP by March 20th. And the location is at the Infield Annex on 124 North Maple Street. I also would like to say that I enjoyed my trip around the world at the Heritage Fair on February 25th. The exhibits and the presentations for each country were very informative. The music and the dancing from all the cultures were amazing to watch. I also learned some helpful information on family genealogy from a presentation given by the Infield Public Library. I would like to thank all that were involved for a wonderful program there. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Kalnin?
Thank you. So with respect to Enfield Kite, and specifically ECDC, all 28 slots are filled. ECDC has just been reaccredited by NIAC, the National Association for the Education of Young Children. And like Head Start a couple of months ago, the scores were phenomenal. The overall score was 91%, and the infant program scored 100% on its portfolio. So again, this is further proof that we have a top-notch team at Stowe Early Learning, and I hope we can continue to keep ECDC together with the remainder of Stowe in our plans. Just wanted to throw that in. With respect to quality enhancement, a consultant from EastCon will be coming to Stowe Preschool later this month to observe play-based learning and cultivation of executive function skills. Regarding McKinney-Vento, 35 Enfield public school students are known to be homeless. I think that's a conservative figure. 50 to 60 parents have registered for the Head Start Community Conversation Focus Group to be held on April 6th. And a reminder, the first community conversation on diversity, equity, and inclusion will be held on March 29th at Asnuntuck, and will focus on identifying challenges. Regarding the second session will be focused on identifying possible solutions. Regarding the Kite budget, expenditures for January totaled $15,214. With respect to Kite communications, Kite published 18 posts in February, and the total reach was 11,202 people, up 16.6% over January. The FRC and the Food Shelf held a Sparkler party on February 18th. As a reminder, Sparkler is an app that enables families to participate in developmental and social emotional screening. It also provides participating families with play-based activities designed to support their children's development. 5 families attended and were provided access to the Sparkler app at this event. Another such event is scheduled for March 25th. It's critical to reach these families, this particular group of families, since they are since they are families in greatest need, and also may be families that are the hardest to reach. So far, a total of 67 families have signed up for Sparkler. 7 of these children in these families scored within the refer range and were provided with appropriate referral information. 3 of the children are currently receiving birth to 3 services. And again, these children who were identified as at risk would not have been so identified, and the families that were referred to birth to 3 probably would not have been referred had it not been for Sparkler. Otherwise, these families and these children would have remained unidentified, perhaps for years. And of course, we don't want to wait for years to identify these issues. The Family Educator Organization will sponsor an Apps and Chats event on March 14th from 4:30 to 5:30, at which time parents can talk about what activities they would like to see offered at Stowe, and childcare will be provided. The Enfield Public School System is partnering with KITE on a family engagement initiative to be facilitated by the Gesell Institute. The plan is to set up a meeting involving the school administration, a representative from Gesell, who would be Peg Oliveira, and perhaps members from the Board of Education to start a conversation on how the school system can best communicate with families. KITE held another Dine and Discuss meeting on February 9th for early childhood educators. Sparkler was discussed, and attendees were advised that a message board will be housed on the KITE website, which will give educators an opportunity to exchange information and ideas with one another. The last Dine and Discuss meeting of the school year will be held in May. An informational transition to kindergarten night will be held on April 20th for families of children entering kindergarten next fall. The Rocking Chair Readers Initiative started in February, and this program involves elderly folks coming into classrooms once or twice a month to read to the kids for half an hour. And so far, 9 volunteers are participating, and soon 11 classrooms will be involved. The first readers ceremony was held on March 6th at JFK, and I hope to have more details to share at the next Board of Education meeting about it. The 2Gen committee met on March 2nd to plan its next steps for addressing the affordable childcare issue in Enfield. We learned that the state legislature is considering passage of Child Care Bill 6659 to provide support and subsidies for child care for working families. The KITE leadership will set up a meeting with Beth Bai, Commissioner of the Office of Early Childhood, to discuss how KITE can contribute to addressing this issue. The Chamber of Commerce, working with KITE, will be sponsoring a breakfast in late August or early fall to bring together child care center providers and area businesses to talk about what can be done to address the issue of high-quality, affordable child care in Enfield. 2Gen will draw up 2 questionnaires, one for the child care community and the other for the business community, to explore the issue of child care needs in greater detail and how 2Gen can help. And finally, excuse me, I want to say a few words about Child First. Child First is a mental health service provided to infants, young children, and their families utilizing a therapeutic approach known as child-parent psychotherapy. Child First established a presence in Enfield a number of years ago. Megan Thoreau, the Child First supervisor at the Village for Families and Children in Hartford, would like to strengthen Child First connection with the Enfield community, starting with a brief presentation about Child First and how it can work with the school system to deal with the emotional challenges facing young children. She suggested a meeting with the Board of Education. And a couple of comments about Head Start. Average monthly attendance remains at 85%. The coming unit of study will focus on learning about clothing and the concepts of sink and float, specifically exploring textures, solids and liquids, mixing liquids, and sink or float. Second step, Unit 4 will focus on friendship skills and problem solving, as well as saying the problem as a calming strategy. Ready Rosie playlists sent home dovetailed very nicely with the curriculum, sorting laundry and using clues to sort it out. Head Start remains at full enrollment. 35 referrals were made for energy assistance, 7 for food assistance, 32 to WIC, 2 dental, and 13 for housing assistance. Transportation is a bit of a challenge. 25 families have transportation services, but 12 families are currently on the waiting list. So Stowe will have to work with Smith to find a way of getting these children to and from Head Start. Heights, weights, and BMIs for all Head Start students will be obtained and results shared with the families. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Kalman. Ms. Cushman?
Well, the Heritage Fair was something that Jean and I attended together, and it was a great opportunity to learn about the rich variety of cultures in our community. And we just are thankful for all those who contributed their time in planning, as well as those who committed to exhibiting. Congratulations to all of the first readers who were recognized in this ceremony hosted at JFK on March 5th. It was a great celebration with family, friends, and many staff who are there to support them as well. The math extravaganza night at Parkman School was a huge success, with 167 people in attendance. The Parkman Math Committee collaborated with the ERFC to plan a fun night of math activities for families to enjoy. Students and families practiced together skills related to place value, fractions, capacity, weight, length, multiplication, and more. ERFC helped to facilitate the event by providing not only volunteers, but a delicious dinner to families as well. Thank you to the Parkman and the ERFC staff who made this event possible. Many families and staff look forward to this event every year. And lastly, I just wanted to wish Buzz Robotics well as their next competition begins at Western New England University tomorrow. I look forward to seeing them compete, which can be viewed in person or online. And I appreciate Ms. Marr for keeping us informed with the details on the competition. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hamry?
Thank you. Starting off with the JFK PTO, they are going to be having a fundraiser on Sunday, April 30th from 10 to 5 at JFK. It's a different kind of fundraiser. It's a mattress fundraiser where a company that does fundraising for schools and PTOs will be on site to offer mattresses of all sizes. So for more information on that, please check out the JFK PTO website and contact them for any questions. I also want to congratulate in advance those that are inducted into the National Junior Honor Society happening during the ceremony on March 22nd. I do hope to attend, pending any schedule conflicts. Such as this Friday, March 17th, where I won't be able to attend the music performance at Enfield High. I do hope to attend the one happening Saturday, March 25th at Enfield High for the Enfield Chorus Festival. If anybody can attend those, that'd be great. Again, the one happening this Friday is the 17th Annual Strings Festival, as mentioned earlier by Superintendent. On the 25th, it's the Enfield Chorus Enfield Chorus Festival. Excuse me. I want to commend again our representatives of the Unified Sports and Special Olympics program, Shaylin O'Farrell, Lily Bellucci, Mr. Ramos for the coaching. And it's wonderful to see that Unified Sound, Unified Sports are now part of these are now programs in place in the district, and I know they've been in place for some time in the case of the sports. But again, it highlights that Unified Sound is something that is going to be a regularly offered program, as mentioned in the last board meeting. It's nice to have that to be here and able to have a board meeting in person. It really does speak to the importance of these meetings when we can't have them because we had to miss the last one. And with all respect to Dr. Callanan here, you can tell when we don't have that meeting. We have a lot to talk about and catch you up on. So I was part of the group that helped with the coordinate the Heritage Fair. A very small part, I will admit that. Thanks to Kite and the staff at JFK and the volunteers that showed up for that, it was a resounding success. Duplicated hopefully every other year, but maybe more often, but at least every other year. It was a great opportunity to demonstrate that cultural span that is represented in Enfield schools. And I was also very, very fortunate to be a judge at the Invention Convention and witnessed some amazing ingenuity by some of the very talented students in our schools. So kudos to everybody that participated in that. I want to thank Mr. Cruzel for his comments about the first readers. Good to see that is back in place and happening in person again. And I would always throw a second to the props to Mr. Ryder for his abilities to respond on the fly, doing any DJ duties. To Mrs. Higley, I do support I do appreciate the support for the board, for the entire board in the situation that we've that prevented us from having our most recent meeting. Lastly, I just want to take a moment to throw a shout out. Oh, well, no, not lastly. Thanks to our Mrs. Middleton, I was able to read Home Run for Bunny. Not gonna lie, it's a great read. It's a very simple read, but it tells a great story about a baseball player from Springfield, Mass. That was playing in the American Legion Baseball League, if I'm not mistaken. And I want to say that there's a really strong possibility that my grandfather would have been playing baseball in the American Legion League in Springfield during the time that the subject of that story was in the game. So that was a really good read. I recommend that anybody takes a moment to find that and give it a read. And then finally, a shout out to everyone that's just basically doing their best, whether it's family, whether it's students, whether it's board members, administration. It's not often that you give yourself the moment to take a breather, to step back and say, okay, self-care is important. Let's sit back and just not answer the phone, not respond to the text message, not look at the social medias. Just take a moment to acknowledge the fact that sometimes you just have to allow yourself to take care of yourself. So, again, shout out to everybody that is just basically doing their best to continue doing what's best. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. Mr. LeBlanc? All set. Ms. Pickett?
So before I come here, typically on Tuesday nights, tonight a Thursday night, I ask my kids if there's anything that I should share. And it's interesting that you shared in your report about play-based learning, because that was something that they both mentioned. There's some new centers going on in their classroom, some type of like math challenge going on, I think in a second grade classroom that might be my son is in. And they were talking about the joy of finding this kind of playful learning. So I'm excited to hear more about that. I also attended the Heritage Fair with my family and just want to thank those who helped put that on, the folks who had tables, the performers, and all that attended. I think that was such a beautiful display of just how diverse and welcoming our community can be. So thank you for those who put that on. Enfield Street School, we are currently participating in our readathon. I'm going to encourage all families to make sure that you sign your child up using the app. There's been lots of QR codes and flyers coming home with ways to sign up, so please make sure you're doing that. We're looking for 100% participation. So please check out the principal newsletter, your child's backpack, your folders, all of that good stuff. And because we've already reached our first milestone, tomorrow will be Crazy Hair or Hat Day. So good job, kiddos, and keep reading. Ms. Higley, I know she left, but I want to thank her. So I take this position incredibly seriously. I think it's important to remind people that we are volunteers. And I can only share personally for me that I'm here because I'm a mom. and I want to help our schools. So on February 15th, I received a document in the mail containing offensive and racist threats. The very point of the hateful letter was intimidation and disrespect that I believe was encouraged by rhetoric and language used by some of my fellow Board of Ed members. I'm not here to shame anyone or share the details of my family's experience. Instead, I'd like to share reflections and considerations of how we might prevent and respond to hateful acts of intimidation that target people of color and other marginalized members in our community. Such incidents are not isolated. Therefore, a thoughtful systemic response is needed. I ask that our town leadership and our board think about what we're doing intentionally to prevent and respond to acts of racism, hate speech, and hateful acts. We need to be willing to listen with compassion, empathy, and respect. Being dismissive, disbelieving, or desensitizing to another's experience is unhelpful and actually re-traumatizing. We need to acknowledge and recognize that how we experience or interpret something does not justify devaluing or discounting the seriousness of another's experience. My family's fear is real and unwarranted. I believe that Enfield is filled with decent, loving, hardworking people who, like me, want the very best for their children and community. But I'm not naive to the fact that racism and anti-Black sentiment exists and are terribly destructive to a community. So those of you asking, what can you do? Where can you start? Here are a couple of my simple suggestions. First, look in the mirror and ask yourself, what am I doing to expand my worldview, my consciousness, my circle of friends? How am I contributing to an Enfield that is more affirming, accessible, inclusive, and welcoming? Where do I get my information about other people? What posts do I share, and why do I share those? To the elected officials, the town employees, our police department, and our staff, please center your care on those harmed and negatively impacted. Communication, listening, offering support, and action are important for victims of harassment. No victim should have to plead for help or continually follow up for additional information. Recognize the importance and impact of whether and how you communicate, listen, offer, and provide supportive responses and resources. Do not make those victimized do the most work. And lastly, I ask to advocate for humane change. The First Amendment protects freedom of speech, but that right is not absolute. It cannot mean that it's acceptable to silence someone whose views or values of skin color you dislike by harassing them. All people deserve the right to feel safe, particularly in their home. So please contact your legislators and urge them to advocate for systemic change to protect people of color and elected officials. Advocate for victim-centered care rather than bully-centered protective responses. We have legislation to protect our children, so why do we tolerate or embolden racist, intimidating behavior in adults? We know better, and we can do better, and we must do better. Our children are watching. I would like to take this opportunity to publicly thank you, Tina. Your unwavering, consistent advocacy during this extremely difficult time for my family means more to me than you know. Also, a heartfelt thank you to our friends and family. You know who you are. And to all those listening, I'm grateful for this opportunity to share this very scary and painful experience. I hope that sharing this ordeal moves you to positively impact action to make Enfield a better community for all.
Thank you, Ms. Pickett. Mr. Ungar?
So I do want to start by, I see she's not here, she had left, but I want to thank Ms. Higley for her comments and just to let her know that they were appreciated. And I got a report for Hazardville Memorial. Hazardville Memorial recently elected a student council of second graders, and they were nominated by their peers for being role models in their class. Each of the 6 second grade classrooms elected 2 students to help promote positive behavior around the school and to be a voice for the student body. And to add to a comment that Ms. Cushman made with regard to Buzz Robotics. So Buzz Robotics will be competing at their second district event of the year this weekend. They're competing Friday and Saturday. So the times on Friday are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and on Saturday from 7:20 a.m. to 4 o'clock p.m. with playoffs starting at 2:00 p.m. on Saturday. The Buzz Robotics competition is going to be held at the Western New England University at 1215 Wilbraham Road in Springfield, Massachusetts, at the Alumni Healthful Living Center. And they're asking that if you're going to come and they can tour you, to wear closed-toed shoes and closed-back shoes. And you know, to come out and watch the team compete in this 2023 robot event. Their robot, our Enfield robot, is called Meatball 2, Electric Buzz Aloo. And the Buzz team is hoping to qualify for the New England Championships this weekend. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Ungar and Mr. Ryder.
Just a quick update from Eli Whitney. There's something that anybody here in Enfield or anybody that we reach through this communication device, they're doing an American Red Cross blood drive at Whitney on April 26th from 1 to 6 in support specifically of one of our EPS family members. So if you're available April 26th from 1 to 6, there'll be a blood drive at Eli Whitney. They're having a Principal of the Day essay contest where students will submit typed essays by May 11th, and the students will get to vote for their favorite essay. The 5th grade winner will be Principal for the Day. The 4th grade winner will be the Assistant Principal of the Day. And the 3rd grade winner will be called the Chief of Staff for the day. So I'm going to submit an essay. The Connecticut Humane Society will be coming to Eli Whitney on Tuesday, March 28th for a Kind Kids Assembly with our 4th graders. Also, they're starting up their first Lego League robotics program after school next week for 4th and 5th graders. Anybody interested in participating, please fill out the form that went home and return it back to school ASAP.
Can I just ask you a question?
Of course.
Are they bringing animals to the Connecticut Humane Society?
I believe they are.
Okay.
Do you want to go?
I will be there.
Also, as Mr. Dresek said earlier, the last day of school is now June 15th. So our calendar that comes out at the beginning of the year, and everybody probably has it on the refrigerator or on a cork board outside the kitchen, it's a static, it's not a living document. So I just wanted to, again, this is my annual reminder to everybody that the last day of school does change when we have cancellations, whether they be for weather or otherwise. EnfieldPTO.com is always updated. So like as soon as I got that phone call at 5 something in the morning the other day on Tuesday when school was canceled, I immediately change our calendar. So the last 2 days of school are always scheduled early release days with lunch. So that is now June 14th and June 15th. June 15th is the scheduled last day of school. Again, early release day with lunch. And that is a Thursday. So that Wednesday and Thursday of that week are our last 2 days of school as of now. Also, Eli Whitney PTO has added a second date for a Hartford Yard Goats game. This is because we sold out of the first game, so we picked a second date because we had we sold out. So it's for Hazardville and Whitney families, although anybody is welcome to come, of course. And it's a Sunday afternoon on June 25th. Tickets are on sale on EnfieldPTO.com/Whitney. And after the game, it's one of those afternoon Sunday games where the kids get to run the bases. So Mr. LeBlanc, if you want to go, we can run the bases together at the AA ballpark. Some of the places I've been since we've last met, too many to name, but Invention Convention, First Readers Trivia Night. But I did want to share, I got an invite a couple weeks back, and I got to read in one of the second grade classrooms at Hazardville Memorial School. And I got so many great thank you letters and drawings, and they're all amazing. And I wanted to acknowledge the classroom and say thank you. And I was not a part of the rocking chair readers, Dr. Kalman.
Yeah.
I was an invited guest as a parent and a former parent at Hazardville specifically. So this was not part of the rocking chair readers program. They did not put me in a rocking chair that afternoon. But these thank you letters are just amazing. And I just wanted, I don't know what that was. I just wanted to say that I've been doing this for a long time. My daughter's a freshman and my son is in 6th grade. And since she was in kindergarten, I've either been the VP or the president of all the PTOs at all of their schools, or the PTO coordinator for the district, just somebody that tries to help out. But these thank you letters are so cute, and I've kept every thank you letter from everything I've done since she was in kindergarten. I have a boxes at home with these things, and they're all going to go in there, and I keep them just for me. But they're not just thank you letters. They're filled with fun trivia. Mr. Ryder, guess what my cousin's name is? The kids don't care. They just want us to come by and say hi and read a book and hang out, or hang out with my friends at lunch. Which brings me to my last point. It's Board Appreciation Month. And, I've been blessed to be on the school board, 6 years now, and second in tenure only to our chair. But I just wanted to say that I do appreciate everybody on this board, and I appreciate everybody that I've served with in all 3 terms. I miss some folks like Joyce Hall. Speaking of all the first readers that we've been talking about tonight, that's come up a couple times, and I just keep thinking of my friend Joyce. But I just wanted to mention that to you guys, all 8 of you, and to our student reps who aren't here tonight. And I was going to actually mention Kayla. One of our 2 student reps was actually nominated and won an award through the North Central Act of Kindness. So she was presented with her award. I knew that last time we met, but she didn't, so I couldn't say it. And now she's not here, so I'll congratulate her again in person when we see her in a couple weeks. But that's everything for this week. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder. I have a few things I'd like to mention tonight. I had the pleasure of attending at Enfield High a United Sound presentation with the State Department of Ed Commissioner, Ms. Charlene Russell Tucker, along with other state folks. Ms. Shell, once again, explained to Ms. Russell Tucker the grant writing process, and the kids explained how they advocated for the United Sound grant to be voted on by EHS students. I think there were 7 competing grants. Is that what they said? 7 competing grants, and United Sound won based on the voting by the student body. Ms. Shell indicated that United Sound will perform a concert for the EHS staff on Wednesday, April 26th. This will be during the day. It's a half day. And I asked if she could invite the board to that concert. I think it would be a great way for us to be able to go and see. I thought Ms. Acree would be very excited about this, and I wanted to give you the date just as quickly as possible. And so she will send that info to Ms. Zalicki to put on our calendars. And again, I am so proud of United Sound, but the story of Ms. Shell being a former student is really that she's back, and she's giving so much back to our EPS community is really touching to me. I attended the Invention Convention. Amazing inventions. There were quite a few that really struck out to me. I can't imagine what it was like to judge. I would not be a good judger. I would just say everybody. Yeah. One of the coolest ones was a gel comb, and as you were combing your hair, the gel came out, so it wasn't on your counter, it wasn't on your hands. There was a commercial that accompanied it. It was great. Another student.
Does Mr. Long, you want one?
Does Mr. Long, you want? It's after 9 o'clock. Things are getting. Another student had invented a box for deliveries to stop porch pirates. The box opened like a mailbox. The packages that are delivered go in, and you can't go back in to grab the package out. And there was a lock with a key on the back of the box, and it was a big box. And that might be a good idea if you're trying to hide Amazon packages that might come in daily or something like that too. If you kept the only key to the lock, but I thought that was a really great idea. The other one, so we had a lot of like invention things. Things that can make your life easier. But one really struck out to me. There was a box and had a little Etch-a-Sketch on it, and it was all decorated. And when you open the box, there was a timer and a squishy ball. So if you're feeling anxious or upset in the moment, you flip the timer and you squish the ball and you address your anxious feelings or your nervousness. And when the timer runs out, you put the squishy ball and the timer away, close it, and on the Etch-a-Sketch, you write something positive as a way to redirect those nervous and anxious feelings. I thought that was great. And she said she came up with it because, schoolwork can be a lot and testing can be a lot, and this is what she does. I thought that was a really thoughtful invention. So I love that. Congratulations to not only the winners, but all the participants. Your inventions were awesome. I attended the Heritage Fair, and I want to thank Sherry Winans, who connected me with Mohammed. He is a 2017 graduate of EHS. He is from Somalia and runs a Somalian restaurant in Springfield. Mohammed would like to do outreach with the Somalian families in Enfield. Again, another student wanting to give back to our community. Thank you to Miss Bruce for inviting me to your class to read for your students. I read A Home Run for Bunny. I was not in a rocking chair. I was in a high stool type chair. I read A Home Run for Bunny, which is an amazing book. I like the fact that it's relatable. It's in Massachusetts. It's a biography. I like that Bunny's friend wrote the book about him. It's a touching story of acceptance and standing up for one another. And lastly, at the Invention Convention, I learned about something called GEMS. GEMS stands for Girls in Engineering, Manufacturing, and STEAM. This program is at JFK, and Mr. Drezik is working on getting GEMS into the BOE meeting so we can learn a little bit more about their program. And just one real quick thing, if you're an Enfield High parent and you are a parent of a junior, they posted the junior prom information on the Enfield High Parents page. It's Thursday, April 6th at Crestview Country Club. Please visit the Enfield High Parents page if you need more information on the junior prom. And I think that's all I have for this evening. Oh, I just want to mention one thing, just because both Ms. Cushman and Mr. Ongire brought up Buzz Robotics, and we had Mr. Ramos here. So you said the competition is what, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Friday, or?
11 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Okay. So I guess the point I'm making, and Mr. Ongire, you had gone on the field trip with the kids. Again, we have these teachers that are very selfless to the district. They do get stipends, but if you actually broke down the stipends and the amount of work they put in, it's literally nothing. So thank you to those teachers who are with Buzz, Mr. Ramos, those teachers that go the extra mile. It's greatly appreciated. Okay, moving on to unfinished business. We're going to do the policy revision, second reading, and we're going to do the second reading individually like we did the first reading. Okay, Mr. Ryder?
Okay, enclosed in your packets were 4 policies that were approved for first reading on February 14th. We've had an extra long time to review them. So do I have a motion to approve for a second reading policy number 5113.2 regarding truancy?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Hamry, seconded by Ms. Pickett. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ryder?
4.
Mr. Ongire?
4.
Mrs. Acree?
Yes.
Mr. Kalman?
4.
Mrs. Cushman?
Yes.
Mr. Hamry?
4.
Mr. LeBlanc? 4. Mrs. Pickett?
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, next up, do I have a motion to approve for second reading policy number 5141.4 regarding reporting of child abuse, neglect, and sexual assault?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Pickett, second by Dr. Kalman. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ryder?
4.
Mr. Ongire?
4.
Mrs. Acree?
4.
Dr. Kalman?
4.
Mrs. Cushman?
Yes.
Mr. Henry?
4.
Mr. LeBlanc? 4. Mrs. Pickett?
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next up, do I have a motion to approve for a second reading policy number 5145.511 regarding sexual abuse prevention and education program?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Pickett, seconded by Mr. Hamry. Any discussion?
Nothing new.
Roll call.
Mr. Ryder?
4.
Mr. Ongire?
No.
Mrs. Acree?
No.
Dr. Kalman?
Yes.
Mrs. Cushman?
No.
Mr. Hamry?
4.
Mr. LeBlanc?
No.
Mrs. Pickett?
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And our last one of the evening, do I have a motion to approve for a second reading policy number 9325.2 regarding the order of business and meeting conduct?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Pickett, seconded by Mr. Hamry. Any discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Ryder?
4.
Mr. Ungary?
Yes.
Mrs. Dupree?
Yes.
Dr. Callen?
Yes.
Mrs. Cushman?
Yes.
Mr. Hamry?
4.
Mr. LeBlanc?
4.
Mrs. Pickett?
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And that concludes our second reading policies for the night.
Thank you. Item 11, new business, action if any regarding establishing a pre-K through 5 school modernization committee. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Ryder, seconded by Mr. Hamry. Any discussion? Sensing none, roll call, Kathy?
Mr. Ryder?
4.
Mr. Ungary?
Yes.
Mrs. Dupree?
Yes.
Dr. Callen?
Yes.
Mrs. Cushman?
Yes.
Mr. Hamry?
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc?
4.
Mrs. Pickett?
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Exciting time here. Mr. Ungary, I'll be in touch with you like we had spoken.
Okay.
Perfect. Board committee reports, curriculum committee.
All right. So last meeting, we did a program of studies review for JFK, and I really want to thank the folks who helped kind of reconfigure some courses, put together that booklet. It aligns nicely to the course of studies for the high school. I think it's going to help families have an understanding of the programming that's available, and just be much more transparent about the courses we offer and what students are learning. So thank you to the staff at JFK. I think families will really enjoy that. We also discussed TAG, our Talented and Gifted program. And through that discussion, there are quite a few additional discussions that need to happen. One is there's a policy implication. So we have passed 6172.1, which directly impacts some talented and gifted programming. We have some financial considerations as far as potentially, getting some support in re-envisioning and reimagining TAG. So I will be following up with the chair and the superintendent about some possibilities to get some assistance in helping us think about that programming. But we look forward to continuing kind of reimagining how we support our gifted students in comprehensive ways. And that's that for now.
Great, thank you. Finance, Dr. Kalnin?
The Finance and Budget Committee met on March 6th. The 2023 budget was reviewed. The original budget was $73,275,252. The end-of-year projection is now $79,296,576. The main drivers of the difference were special education, tuition, staff, and benefits. The nutrition services net profit as of January 2023 was $160,429.48. The net worth year to date was $1,471,773.49. With respect to the TAG investment, we received an update from Wolf Financial Group at the last meeting. The value as of February 28th was $2,967,264.16, a loss of $81,925.43 since last month. Our advisors at Wolf felt that there will continue to be market turbulence for the next anywhere from 6 to 18 months, quite possibly ending in a recession before the market recovers. So like last year, there are currently no safe havens for investments since both stocks and bonds have been adversely affected. So we have been advised that the most prudent course would be not to make any radical changes, just to ride this out until better days. Since our portfolio is already quite conservative, 60% in equities and 40% in bonds. With respect to funding our TAG program, we are advised that we could increase our investment to $125,000 per year for the program, and this may be as much as $150,000 without fear of touching the principal. The advisor said that maybe in the the next year, the coming year, we could invest as much as $150,000. If the market continues to be as it is for more than a year, then it would be prudent just not to invest any more than $125,000 per year, again, to protect the principal. That concludes my report.
I'll just add that I'm just happy we're having those conversations regarding TAG and that we're examining the pieces. I think finding out from Wolf and Associates was super important to see how much they recommended we increase what we're using for the TAG program. And then in curriculum, we realized there's some policy discussions that need to take place. So I think it's going to be a slow direction, but it's a direction. And I think it's in a positive direction. So I thank the committee members for discussing that. Policy committee?
We are reconvening next Tuesday, March 21st.
Leadership committee did not meet. Unfortunately, I had a scheduling conflict and we could not meet this past week. Joint facilities committee?
Next meeting on the calendar is March 23rd.
JFK building committee?
That was to be this evening in these fine chairs that we're sitting in, so they were bumped.
Oh.
I don't have a new date.
Joint security committee?
We'll be scheduling something shortly.
The Enfield Mental Health and Wellness Work Group?
No report.
I just want to mention that I had seen on Facebook that they're having a 5th grade dance through social services. And this was the kind of thing we were looking to partner with the town on so that we could be communicating that as board members. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. The Enfield Cultural Arts Commission, Josh?
I'm kind of thrown off by that last comment too. That would seem to be the right venue to discuss that. But so ECAC, they're working on the monthly jam still. That project is still not yet seen fruition, but it takes time to put it together. So it is a project that is excuse me, in development and moving forward. There's also a project to move forward with regards to putting murals on some of the facades in the town to be determined which locations would be receiving that, but it is in the budgeting process to try to figure out the cost for and the locations. Really excited about the prospective concerts that can happen, and if I understand the design correctly, at a gazebo that has yet to be built, but would happen behind this building here, and would be wonderful for an outdoor concert experience. So that's in development as well, with the approval of that gazebo through the town council. So to be determined when and where, when and who, but the where is at least on the agenda, so to speak. Upcoming things: the Arts Festival at Enfield High School is on the horizon again. Looking forward to that through the, I'm going to get this wrong, is it the Ladies Guild of Enfield?
Women's Club.
Women's Club of Enfield. I was very close. I should know better than that, but I speak completely selfishly in this one. I look forward to the soup bowls that are, the soup and the bowls that go with it through Chef O and the culinary program there. Enfield Pride meeting is happening this Sunday, March 19th at 3 p.m. And the PFLAG group, the Enfield PFLAG support group, meets the first Monday of every month at Asnuntuck. Both Enfield Pride and Enfield PFLAG are available in Facebook. Search for Enfield PFLAG, Enfield Pride, to get connected with those organizations. And both Enfield Pride and Enfield PFLAG will be having different events happening in June to support Enfield, to support Pride Month. So watch for them, and if you're interested in becoming involved or in providing support to those organizations, you can reach out to them through those respective Facebook social media outlets. And that is it for the ECAC.
Thank you. Item 13, approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the regular Board of Ed meeting minutes from February 14th, 2023?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Ryder. Did you? Seconded by Mr. Ungary. All in favor? Show of hands. Do I have a motion to approve the special Board of Ed meeting minutes from February 24th, 2023?
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Kalnin, seconded by Mr. Ryder. Show of hands.
I had a clarifying question.
Oh.
Just right. That's what I was going to ask. Is that something that our secretary needed to have his name on as well?
Town did it, so I guess I could put your name on. I don't know. I've never, it's a new one for me. I'll find out.
I read them and I approve of them.
Yeah.
They're pretty cut and dry, but I just
John's
didn't.
name is on it.
Correct. I just wanted to ask if it had to be John's name or your name, or.
I mean, I'll check with Sheila.
So I approve pending your check.
Are you good with the? Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Kathy. I just wanted to ask.
Item 14, approval of accounts and payroll. Dr. Kalnin?
The certification of expenditures. The Finance Committee met on March 6, 2023, to review financial statements for the month of February year-to-date and to examine various documents related to finances. Our review concluded that there is nothing significant to report on to the board. Motion. I move we accept the superintendent's certification as follows. I hereby certify that in the month of February, total expenditures amounted to $7,672,665.96, broken down between payroll totaling $4,671,462.81 and other accounts totaling $3 million, excuse me. I knew I was going to stumble on that one. $3,001,203.15. All payments have been made in accordance with the approved budget and are properly accounted for within the books of accounts. Copies of approval for check invoices are properly documented.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pickett. Show of hands.
I think so.
Okay. Certification of grants and Head Start expenditures. The Finance Committee met on March 6, 2023 to review financial statements for grants during the month of February year-to-date and to examine various documents related to finances. Our review concluded that there is nothing significant to report to the board. Motion. I move we accept the superintendent's certification as follows. I hereby certify that in the month of February, the total grant and Head Start expenditures amount to $891,417.53, broken down between payroll totaling $608,413.37, and other accounts totaling $283,004.16. All payments have been made in accordance with the approved budget and are properly accounted for within the books of accounts. Copies of approval for check invoices are properly documented.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pickett. Show of hands. Item. Oh, wait. Oh, there's more? Oh. Item 15, correspondence and communications. I'm going to take this moment just to tell Eric Griffin, who emailed us about the Strings Festival and the chorale concert. I didn't mention them during my board member comments because they were mentioned several times tonight. I didn't want to think that I was ignoring you. And Mr. Ryder posted it on the EnfieldPTO.com website. I'm also going to take a minute to, which I never do, wish my husband a very happy 50th birthday. Came to the Board of Ed meeting tonight because we had to get this meeting in. And so I appreciate him being supportive and sacrificing, but we got to spend some time with the family before I came here. So happy birthday. I know you're not going to be happy that I did that, but happy birthday anyway. Yes.
You say 50?
50. He's older than me, so. Should I say that? He's older than me. And he's Jonathan's fun uncle. So
Does he want a gel comb?
he does not have a gel comb. He's like Andy. Item 16, executive session. There is no need. Item 17, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hamry, second by Ms. Pickett. All in favor? Good night, everyone. Thank you.